Well, good afternoon, everybody. It is 6 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk. I'm Brian Wilson, and I'm coming to you from the mothership on Music Row, actually in studio today. And it's, I'm telling you, they've been working on the place since I was here last. It's looking better.
They've made a few changes.
Yeah, a few changes, and there are cameras, and there are ring lights, and there's all kinds of technology here that I've never seen before. But we're gonna make our way through it. The reason I'm here today is we're gonna be joined later in the show by Nate Bargatzi, who's just crushing it right now in the world of comedy, and always very happy to have him. It's going to be a good show. Not only that, we're going to also have our regular time with Pete Hegseth at 4:35. A lot of ground to cover, but I want to go back and revisit the events of yesterday with Donald Trump. Because, Donald Trump yesterday, as you know, went to New York, was arraigned on these charges. We look at everything now, and the indictment gets unsealed, and the legal eagles get to take a look at it. And there's several things that are clear. Number one is that this is a pretty flimsy case. There's not much there. I don't see a whole lot to these indictments. The legal underpinnings are weak. Some say non-existent. And that this really has the smacking of a political case, a political stunt, than it does a serious legal case brought against the former president of the United States, brought by a prosecutor who vowed that he would do just this while he was running for office. So, I mean, it's pretty clear. It's blatantly political. And so, my question is, what is the Democrats' real game here? And let me lay it out for you, and then I will ask you to weigh in and tell me what you think the Democrats' game here is. So, number one, what I know is that ever since the information about this indictment leaked out illegally, the numbers have moved precipitously. You can't deny it. There's been a big trend back toward Trump among Republican voters. I mean, there are 4 different polls out there where Trump now leads DeSantis by 30 points or better. In a couple of polls, it's 33%. So that wasn't true just a few weeks ago. So I'm assuming that when the announcement came that this prosecutor out of Manhattan, Alvin Bragg, was going to level indictments against the former president of the United States, that many Republicans just said, "Oh, you won't, that won't stand." They're pretty upset about it, and so they all decided that they would, run back into the arms and be supportive of a president that they voted for in the past and that they very much like. And the movement came away from DeSantis and toward Trump. All right, that's a fact. Is the indictment and the movement in the polls connected? I believe they are. So then you got to ask yourself, okay, well, were Democrats, what was their strategy? I mean, did they think that by bringing this case against Trump, they would hurt Trump or help Trump? I mean, you can look at it and they say, well, what they were trying to do is they're trying to hurt this president in advance of the 2024 general election. And I would say, well, if that's the case, that really hasn't been accomplished, has it? The other way to look at it is they knew full well what the reaction of Republicans would be, that they would get irritated and they would go back to Trump. And that's because they want to help Trump. They want to have more people go to Trump because they believe, and you hear this in Democrat circles, they believe that they can beat Trump. Now, they're not too sure about DeSantis or somebody else that might arise, but they believe they can take Trump. And so the question is, were they out to hurt Trump? Because if that was their plan, it backfired horribly because it has only helped Trump among Republican voters. Were they trying to help Trump because they knew what the reaction was going to be and they really want to ultimately to face Trump in the general election? I don't know. What do you think? 615-737-9986. Phone lines are open. I'd like to know what you think about all this. What do you think their strategy is? Because it's not very clear to me, at looking at all this, what their strategy is. It seems to me that you could look at it, either way. And I'm not pushing one candidate or another. I'm just trying to figure out what the game is, because it is not a significant legal case. It's not going anywhere. I doubt this will even make its way to trial. I'd be really shocked if it made its way to trial. I think it'll be dismissed. But maybe they never intended to take this thing to trial. Maybe they never expected it to go to trial. Really, the only thing they wanted to do was to help Trump solidify his numbers because they want to face Trump. I don't know. That's what you hear. They say that they believe that if they go against Trump, they can win. But can you imagine, let's say Biden up against a different Republican candidate? I'm not going to name one, but there are several of them out there. Younger, more vibrant, can put a sentence together. I don't know. I mean, is that what their game was? 615-737-9986. We'll start with Tommy in Cross Plains. Tommy, hello. You're on with Brian on the drive. What do you say, Tommy?
I think you've nailed it, Brian. I really believe they want Trump to run because that's their best opportunity to win, because the never-Trumpers are going to be never-Trumpers. They won't vote for him, and enough independents are on the fence that they can pull that. But if you get another Republican out there, they're not so sure about the independents.
Listen, that's an interesting analysis. I don't find much argument with that. I mean, I think one of the things you have to understand is that, I think that sometimes we as Republicans, and I try not to do this, but I think we as Republicans, we're playing checkers. And sometimes I think the Democrats are playing chess. I mean, I really think they are. They're thinking 2 or 3 moves ahead. And you can't look at this in simplistic terms. You have to look at it sort of as what is the strategery here? What is the strategy? I don't know. Maybe you're right about that. But, Tommy, thank you for the call. Greatly appreciate it. Let's go to Mike in South Pittsburgh. Mike, you're on with Brian on the drive. Mike, what's your opinion about all this?
Well, I'll tell you what. President Trump has been the first in a lot of things. First president to make America independent of energy. And first president, of course, to be indicted. But what's going to happen is they're going to drag this out, just like they did the Russian collusion, just like they did the J6. They're going to drag it all out. And this next hearing is when? In December. So what's going to happen is President Trump is going to be reelected as president, and he's going to be the first president to pardon himself.
Here's the thing about December. Yeah, that's when the next court hearing would be. But you know what? What happens in these particular cases is that lawyers, what they like, we're going to win this thing with paper, is what they say. And when you listen to Tacopina, this is Trump's lawyer, he has said in recent days, you know what? We're going to win this thing by sending over a bunch of objections. They believe the case is thin. They believe the case will not stand up to any kind of judicial scrutiny. They believe there's about 5 or 6 different ways that this whole thing is weak on its merits. I mean, it just there's no there. And so, then the judge has to, go through and decide all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I think this thing gets dismissed before it goes very far down the path. But, I hear now Biden's not even going to announce until the fall is one of the stories that's floating around. That's interesting enough. All right, how about Daniel in Tullahoma? Daniel, you're on with Brian on the drive. What do you say? Daniel, you're up.
Brian just solidified Trump winning it. And 2, Trump is exposing the corrupt legal system. And actually 3, if you want to look at a third element, this is election interference, because we all know the resident in the White House, Joe Biden, has come out and basically said the quiet part.
Yeah, maybe that's true. All right. Well, listen, thank you for the call. Greatly appreciate it. Let's go to Corey in Murfreesboro. Corey, you're up next on the drive. So what do you think their strategy is here? I mean, do you think that they're trying to hurt Trump, or do they want to help Trump because they know that by taking this action, they are driving Republicans back to the Trump corner?
Well, good day. I do believe they are trying to hurt, but they are unintentionally helping. But I do have a question because I'm not quite sure if you know as well. If you're under indictment, like how valid it is, are you able to run for federal office, period?
I believe I have read, and again, I'm not an expert on this, but Corey, what I have read is that there is nothing about being under indictment that stops one from running for political office. That's what I am told. So we'll see how that plays out. Thank you pretty much, Corey. Appreciate the call. Randall in Woodbury, you're on with Brian on the drive. Randall, what's your thought? What is the strategy here for Democrats? What are they trying to accomplish in your mind?
I think that they're trying to use DeSantis to split the Republican Party. And I think they really want DeSantis to run because whoever gets the nomination, they're going to come after and tear him all to pieces. And DeSantis don't have the money, and they know it, to put up the fight that Trump does. They could do DeSantis in just real early on.
Yeah, I read where DeSantis has $30 million set back in a PAC that he's collected in recent days. So I don't know. And my feeling is that whoever gets the nomination will have the money to run a campaign. I'm not real worried about that. Trump never really put a lot of his own money. He put some money in, don't get me wrong, but he never put a lot of his own money into the campaign. It was money that he raised from other sources almost always. But, thank you for the call. Listen, I'm not real sure what their plan is here. I mean, but what I'm trying to game here is this because they thought they were hurting Trump or because they want to help Trump? It's a pretty good question. John in Murfreesboro, again, you're on with Brian on the drive. Give me your take on it, John.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I'm in the camp to let this thing play out. I don't really do Democrats or Republicans, but I am shocked that some of your callers actually think that Donald Trump has a prayer of winning the presidency again. Who would vote for him? It's not going to be Democrats. It's not going to be women. It's not going to be minorities. It's not going to be the LGBTQ. Who votes for him?
If he's the nominee, I think he probably gets a solid support of the Republican Party. I think they will. I think the real question is the fight is going to be in the primary. Who actually becomes the nominee? Right now, with the poll numbers, I mean, it's pretty clear. I mean, look. You can dismiss the polls if you want to. When you have 4 polls that all say exactly the same thing, that if the election were held today for picking the nominee for the Republican Party, that it would far and away be Trump. He would win among Republican voters and independents who often vote Republican. He will clearly win. 33 points ahead of DeSantis. That's not even close. And remember, it's not just one poll, it's 4 that are basically in the same area there. So, you can't discount Trump for sure. Thanks for the call, man. Appreciate it. Listen, we're going to take more of your calls. Same topic. What is the game here? What is the Democrats' game? Are they trying to help Trump? Or are they trying to hurt him? I'm not real sure. I'd like to know your thoughts about it. 615-737-9986. Right now, it is 20 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Former President Donald Trump arraigned yesterday. We discussed some updates on that case. Plus, Jack Johnson says there's broad support among lawmakers for school security and increase to some mental health treatment, plus a heartwarming story about a mother helping out the children at Covenant School. All that and more, 3:30 right here. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Mac Morey. Brian Wilson in the mothership chair today here. We call it the mothership because this place is just crawling with mothers. They really are. I'm just teasing.
But not really.
Not really. So Mac Morey in the newsroom, Chris Weber in the control room, and I am sitting in the chair. And we're talking about this action that took place with the DA in Manhattan. And it's such an unbelievably weak case. There's just no there at all. And so the question that I have for our listeners, I got several people stacked up on the line, is do you think there's any really, is there a plan here to hurt Donald Trump? Is that the plan for the general election? Or were they actually trying to help Trump because they know that Republicans will cleave on to him because they feel it's unfair what's happening to him? And his numbers have gone up dramatically since we started talking about the indictment. So is it because they actually want Trump to be the nominee? It's a real good question. Gina, out on the road, you're up next on the drive. Hello, Gina. What do you say? Hello, Gina. You're up.
Hey, Brian. So here's my thought is that, of course, they want to keep Trump out of running, I think, completely. So even though they took misdemeanors and made felonies out of them, they're probably going to try to, like the prosecutor's not going to want to settle for anything less than some kind of time being served. And if Trump doesn't accept it, they'll say, we're going to do a jury trial, and then they're going to have a crooked jury, and Trump's going to end up being in jail for a long time.
Well, that assumes that it goes to trial. But I honestly, if you've been listening to some of the conservative legal minds who've been sort of going through this case, they don't think that it stands even a small chance of actually. They don't think it'll get to trial, and they think if it gets to trial that it's a summary judgment because there's just no case there. This could be one on paper, as they say, before you ever get to the courtroom for a trial. So I don't know, Gina. You might be right, but I really trust some of these people, and we're talking people like Jonathan Turley and other great legal minds who've looked at this and said this is an embarrassment. There's nothing here. John in Lebanon. John, good afternoon. You're on with Brian on the drive. What do you say, John?
Yeah, John Lebanon.
Yep, yeah, that's you.
There was kind of a skip in your recording there. Anyway, yeah. First comment, I could swear I heard the attorneys that you're referring to talking the other night about the next hearing being in January, like 2 weeks before the primary. But so I'm kind of curious how I'm hearing December all of a sudden. But my point is, I think you're absolutely right about one thing. Democrats always are several steps ahead. They're like they pop us one, and then they're like, look over here, look at the left hand, and they smack us with the right. Nope, look over here to the left hand, and smack us with the right. And and we fall for it time and time and time again. And I to believe that Joe Biden, who I think, if I'm not mistaken, Brian, maybe you correct me, but I believe he finished in the Democratic primary, like in 5th place before they all mysteriously stepped aside for him. But to believe that he got 80 million votes, 15 million more popularity than Hillary, or 10 million more than Barack Obama, well, then you probably believe in a single bullet theory for John F. Kennedy. But they're not good. They don't want Trump in there unless they plan on shenanigans to steal the election again. I think they just plan on dragging him through the court right up to the primary, so people get tired of hearing Trump again. And of course, if he gets out there and talks too much, he's liable to do his own damage. But that's my thought about it. All
right. Well, no, that's some interesting stuff. I appreciate that. I'm looking for answers because I'm still trying to figure it out. Deborah in Franklin. Deborah, you're on with Brian on the drive. What do you say, Deborah?
One, I think everybody's looking at this incorrectly. I don't think this is the Democrats. I think this is all brag.
and he's doing this because he ran on it, and he wants to be the one to say, I got Trump.
Well, but everything I'm reading suggests that he's not going to accomplish that.
No, he's not, but he thinks he is.
All right, so you just think that this is it's pretty simple. This is Bragg trying to advance his career.
Absolutely.
That's a valid
That's
point.
what he said he was going to do, and that's what he did. And one more thing, I am a woman, was born one at birth, still am one, and I voted for Trump, and I will continue to vote for Trump.
All right, and we're going to have to leave it with that, Deborah. You are our final comment this hour. We really appreciate all the phone calls. 3:30 now on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.30, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. Right now, 82 degrees in Nashville and monitoring some severe weather that is right now making its way to Middle Tennessee. Right now, currently Middle Tennessee in a wind advisory for the next hour. Severe thunderstorm watch in effect for all of Middle Tennessee until tonight. Looks like until 9 p.m. a severe thunderstorm watch for Middle Tennessee, and we are watching for harsh straight-line winds, some flooding potential, and a low possibility of an isolated tornado or two. We'll keep you updated with it all right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Weather and traffic in just a few minutes. Former President Trump, now a criminal defendant. Trump arraigned yesterday in New York City court for felony charges. These are all related to hush money payments to adult film actress Stormy Daniels. Prosecutors say that payment violated campaign finance law, but Dan Abrams says that prosecutors may need to detail how the charges would result in a potentially harsher penalty.
The falsifying of business records is typically a misdemeanor, right? And the difference here between a misdemeanor and a felony is critical. Basically, the prosecutors are saying it rises to the level of a felony because it was part of an effort to conceal another crime. But what the prosecutor isn't doing yet is explaining exactly what crime that is.
And in Tennessee, State Senate Majority Leader Jack Johnson says there's broad support among lawmakers for school security and increased access to mental health treatment.
It goes hand in hand with this conversation. We've got to make access to mental health treatment more available.
The legislation has money for a mental health liaison in schools and could pass one of two key committees as soon as today. And related to the Covenant School tragedy, a mother of a 3-year-old daughter, Chris Wilder, has raised over $30,000 to help those kids in Covenant School last Monday. Wilder lives nearby. She can't imagine the grief of the families and just wanted to make some comfort kits. The donations just kept coming, though. Wilder now has been working on making Easter baskets for the Covenant community. And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Let's talk about Everseal, and you may have a question as to, well, what exactly is Everseal? Well, it's a sealing product. Been around for ages. It was used in industrial applications for years. And the folks at Everseal found a way to provide a permanent solution for sealing your exterior wood and concrete at a price that home and business owners can actually afford. I mean, here's how it works. They come out and they do a deep cleaning. all the way down to make your wood and concrete look just as good as it possibly can. And then they apply their patented seal. It absorbs all the way through to become a permanent part of your wood and concrete to prevent any further deterioration for the next 30 to 50 years. It's got a 25-year manufacturer warranty. Now, think about that for a moment. Do you want to seal your deck every year? Or would you like to just use your deck and not have to worry about it for 25, maybe beyond that? Well, if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, I mean, why continue to do it year after year and spend that money year after year when you can do it one time and be done? Why don't you reach out to Steve Nelson and the team over at Everseal? Here's the number, 844-EVER-USA. That's 844-EVER-USA. Learn more at ever-seal.com.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. You often hear me talk about diversification in the investing process, but how do we diversify? Well, we look for things that move in dissimilar fashion historically. Some of those market areas might be really small companies or really large companies, or very growth-oriented companies or value-oriented companies. And one of the things that we find is that when we diversify between these various segments, we can reduce the volatility of the portfolio because they don't move in tandem with each other historically. Now, we can do that in U.S. markets, we can do that in international markets, and in emerging markets. And when we can dampen that volatility, we can help get ourselves a little bit of a better outcome as far as knowing what we might likely have in the future or how we can take income from our investment portfolio. Now, we also want to add fixed income or bonds to the mix as well. Now, if we know that we need to do this, what's the best way to do it? Well, one of the things that we often teach is this concept of market efficiency. This won the Nobel Prize in economics as well. And it's the idea that if I'm investing in, let's say, small value stocks, if we look at professional managers and their ability to say, hey, should I have this stock or that one, and picking companies or areas of the market, we find that they typically get lower returns than the market does on its own. They just add expense and they can add a lot of volatility. One of the things we want to avoid is anything that can hurt your returns and increase your risk in the investing process. To learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call or call 615-851-1950.
It's 3:37 on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, and I had to move the camera. I was told that I've come in and I've messed up the cameras.
Yeah, you made everyone mad, I'm sure, tomorrow morning.
Well, I'll put it back where it was.
I hope so.
But
yeah. It's a better look now. I will say you were kind of right behind the the boom there.
Honestly, how in the world could you go wrong? I'm just saying. Look, I'm in the mothership today because we're going to be having Nate Bargatzi come by, and Nate, just people said, so that's at the station, right? And I went, I guess if you want it to be. So we're doing it at the station today. He'll be here at 5:05. Yeah. We'll have our regular phone conversation with Pete Hegseth at 4:35. So we got a good show lined up here today. We're also keeping an eye on the weather. We're being weather aware today. On this Trump story, one other thing that I wanted to share before I move on to a new topic, and that is the judge overseeing the case may have a major conflict of interest. And this is sort of interesting. Juan Manuel Merchan, I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly, is an apparent 2020 Biden donor whose daughter once worked for Vice President Kamala Harris's presidential campaign. Seems like to me a good lawyer goes in there and said, Judge Mershon, with all due respect, you have a conflict of interest in this and you need to recuse yourself. So that might happen. I think there's also the possibility of a change of venue. I think this gets won on paper, as they say. They'll file challenges to the legality of the indictment, and I feel like because this thing is so unbelievably thin, so unbelievably not based in the law, that it really will be thrown out on its merits. And so if not this judge, maybe another judge, will see what happens there. Again, we'll watch it, and we'll have plenty of time to talk about it, right? I want to bring you a couple of stories that you're initially going to say not good news, and I wonder what we should draw from this. I told you yesterday, and I have not spent a great deal of time talking about it, but I became sort of more clarified in my thinking about it yesterday when we're talking about the Wisconsin Supreme Court election, and liberals have gained control of the Wisconsin Supreme Court for the first time in 15 years. Now, this is normally a Supreme Court election is not looked at with a great deal of interest. But there was a retirement of the court, and there was an opportunity for liberals to pick up the majority of the Supreme Court. And there are many key pieces of legislation that this court may have to rule upon. And the Democrats threw a lot of money into the race because they wanted to win this, and they wanted to use it as sort of a test bed, a bellwether election, if you will, to see if the themes that they're going to put forward in the general election in 2024 would actually work among voters in what is arguably a battleground state. So Janet Protasiewicz, I believe is the way you say her name, is a judge on the Milwaukee County Circuit Court, has won a seat on the Supreme Court. Protasiewicz defeated conservative Dan Kelly, a former state Supreme Court justice, on Tuesday in what became the most expensive state Supreme Court race in U.S. history and one of the most closely watched elections of 2023. Protasiewicz's victory will allow the court's new liberal majority to determine the future of several pivotal issues the bench is likely to decide in the coming years, including abortion rights, the state's allegedly gerrymandered legislative maps, elected administration, and one could even argue that it might have something to do with the outcome of the 2024 presidential race in the battleground state. 85% of the expected vote counted. Protasiewicz had 55% of the voters. Kelly had 45%. So this changes the balance of the Supreme Court of Wisconsin, and this was all about abortion rights. This was the main issue that Protasiewicz pushed. And see, Democrats wanted to see whether or not if they go hard on abortion rights, which the Democrat Party believes is an issue that wins for them, then could they then take this strategy nationwide and be successful in 2024? So there is that. I think that there was plenty of money on both sides. Both people gave a pretty good campaign, but Democrats are jumping up and down because they believe they have found a strategy that will work in the general election. I'm just saying, I'm not making a commentary about whether I agree or not. I decidedly do not agree, but one way or the other, this is something that we have to absorb and decide what our strategy is going to be, right? You with me? And then, what do you say to the stupid people in Chicago? Oh, my gosh. They have sent someone back to the mayor's job who is probably more progressive than Lori Lightfoot. With a majority of votes reported, Brandon Johnson became out on top over Paul Vallis. Johnson said his victory speech that he will work on behalf of the people of Chicago. Here we go. Brandon Johnson, a union organizer, former teacher, elected Chicago mayor on Tuesday. A major victory for the party's progressive wing as the nation's third largest city grapples with high crime and financial challenges. Johnson, a Cook County commissioner endorsed by the Chicago Teachers Union, won a close race over former Chicago school CEO Paul Vallis, who was backed by the police union. Johnson, 47, will succeed Lori Lightfoot, the first black woman, first openly gay person to be the city's mayor. Lightfoot became the first Chicago mayor in 40 years to lose her re-election bid when she finished third. So it was between Vallis and Johnson became the winner, a union guy, and then you got the guy who was actually backed by the police, the law and order guy, perceived in the race as the law and order guy, does not make it across the goal line. Well, what in the hell you got no room to talk. Now, if people in Chicago have decided that this is the way they want to go, that they want somebody who's soft on crime, who was looked at as perhaps more even progressive than Lori Lightfoot is, and you think you're going to have a good outcome here, you don't get to complain about the crime. You don't get to complain about anything. The city is going to continue to devolve at an incredible rate. Crime is going to be worse than it ever is. And unless, this guy all of a sudden wakes up and decides, well, I'm going to have to actually enforce the law. We're going to have to get tough on crime, which I don't see happening with this person. Then Chicago becomes a hellhole. Nobody will want to go there. Nobody will want to work there. Companies will continue to leave Chicago by the droves, and you can't blame them. Citizens will continue to leave Chicago by droves, and you can't blame them either. What in the world are we coming to when you are given such a stark choice? And by the way, not all that stark, really. I mean, although you had you had Vallis, who was endorsed by the police unions, you wouldn't call him a hard right-winger by any stretch of the imagination. But they couldn't bring themselves to do it. Teachers' unions, man, I'm telling you, they are powerful. They turn out, they vote, they have a slate, and they are ordered to vote a certain way, which they think will be in their interest, and they do so. And then, by the way, it is in their interest because the politicians they have elected are beholden to them, and they get exactly what they want. Teachers' unions are incredibly powerful. Incredibly powerful. So there you have it. The people of Chicago get exactly what they deserve at this point. If it were not like the third largest city in the country, we would just wash our hands of them. But we really can't do that. I mean, it's part of our country. But I'm not going to Chicago. I remember maybe about 5-6 years ago. Yeah, about that long. Took my daughter to Chicago. She wanted to go to Chicago on a vacation. I took her there, and we moved around the city. And even then, it was starting to get rough, but it got so much worse after that. So much worse. The city is a hellhole. Crime is out of control, and they have done nothing to help themselves in this election. Not one single thing. So, I mean, honestly, good luck to you. Good luck, Chicago. Hope this works out just fine for you, but don't come whining to us when things continue to devolve. And speaking of this, by the way, part of the problem is, like in New York with his district attorney, you have a district attorney who takes felonies and turns them into misdemeanors, except in the case of Trump, where he takes misdemeanors and turns them into felonies. Chicago, they don't prosecute crime. I want to tell you a story that happened right here in our own backyard yesterday. I talked about this briefly yesterday, but I didn't really get into it. There was a shooting where police are trying to stop a car, and the occupant of the car gets out and fires several shots into the squad car. Well, you didn't hear much about this, did you? Fire several shots into the squad car. There are 2 police officers in the squad car. They return fire. They were able to bring the suspect under control and make an arrest. Nobody was shot. Nobody was hurt. Nobody was killed. But a lot of shots were fired. They start running the background on the individual, and that individual has 11 outstanding felony awards. 11 outstanding. If I get a speeding ticket and I forget to pay it, I'm living in mortal fear that they're going to pull me over and take me to jail. I don't guess you need to worry about that kind of crap because, you can have 11 outstanding felony warrants and be moving around the city, and nobody touches you. How is it that somebody is out in the streets of Nashville with 11 felony warrants? If we're not careful, Nashville is going to become just like Chicago. It's now 50 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Grace Point Healthcare delivers medicine affordably with menu-style transparent pricing, so you'll know how much it will cost before the care is delivered. And they want you to think about this. We know that seasonal allergies are here, and Grace Point offers allergy testing and treatment so you can enjoy the spring instead of worry about it and be miserable during it. They're best known for the Smart Care Plan, $69 a month. You get unlimited office visits, free basic labs for the entire year. You marry this with a high-deductible insurance plan, you and your family could save hundreds of dollars. At Grace Point, they take their time with each patient. They see you the same or next day. There are no long wait times or crowded wait rooms. They treat naturally whenever possible. It is a military vet-owned practice. Just some of the reasons why it's been voted the best primary care provider by Toasted Music City year after year after year. Grace Point Healthcare is on Main Street in Franklin. Call 599-6868. That's 599-6868 to schedule a visit.
Weather aware right now as these thunderstorms are making their way to Davidson County. Got a severe thunderstorm warning in effect for the next 33 minutes. Williamson County, Davidson County over there in Fairview, looking at Cheatham County, affecting all of those places for the next 30 minutes, and then a severe thunderstorm watch for all of Middle Tennessee until 9 p.m. tonight. We'll get into all of the nitty-gritty details here at 4. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Yeah, keep it right here. We're watching the weather, and we'll break in if there's anything that you need to know. But severe thunderstorm warnings, so we need to be on high alert, right? Bring in the cushions, at the very least. I have a pink flamingo that I left floating around the top of the pool.
Uh-oh.
Bye-bye.
I'm pretty sure it's going to be gone by the time I get home.
That's a shame.
It'll learn to fly.
Yeah, that's right. Flo will fly. Flo the flamingo will fly. Dow Jones Industrials were up 80 points today. The S&P was down 10. The NASDAQ was down almost a full percent, 129 points. Let's talk about oil. I like to look at oil. Oil is down a little bit, $80 for a barrel of West Texas Intermediate. Gold is down slightly, but it's been up. It's been on a hot streak lately. An ounce of gold will cost you $2,036.70. And Bitcoin down $5.35, but still Bitcoin selling for $28,146. This brought to you by Beacon Capital Management. Learn more at beaconcm.com. Coming up in the next hour, the latest on the expulsion effort for 3 Democrats being kicked out of the Tennessee House. And also we'll be joined by Fox and Friends Weekend Edition host Pete Hegseth at 4:35. So a lot ahead in the next hour here on Super Talk 358.
.401, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. Right now, 82 degrees, and we are expecting severe weather coming in to downtown Nashville. Just heard Dan Thomas say within the next 5 minutes, you can expect that to arrive in the form of harsh winds, harsh rain, and that's going to be 60 to 65 mile-an-hour winds. Could see nickel-sized hail. Right now, severe thunderstorm watch for all of Middle Tennessee until 9 p.m. Severe thunderstorm warning in Williamson County, Davidson County, Cheatham County, over there in Fairview. And I just got an alert right here. Severe thunderstorm warning as well in effect for Wayne County. That's all until 4:30, so we'll be monitoring that right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Complete weather and traffic in about 5 minutes. And former Vice President Mike Pence says he will comply with a grand jury subpoena investigating Donald Trump's involvement in the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. Andy Field.
A federal judge had denied Mike Pence's appeal to avoid a grand jury subpoena, but the judge did agree that Mr. Pence would not have to talk about his actual job counting votes in Congress that day. The judge saying the vice president is protected by a speech and debate clause. Still, the former vice president must now tell investigators about his interactions with former President Trump leading up to the January 6th attack. Donald Trump is still appealing to stop Pence and other top aides from talking.
Here in Tennessee, another sexual predator is going to prison on child exploitation charges after a successful undercover operation in Middle Tennessee.
Back in 2019, an FBI agent put out a fake profile of a 15-year-old girl on a popular dating app. Authorities say 33-year-old Kevin Figueroa reached out, started sending lewd photos, and eventually exchanged phone numbers with the agent, whom he thought was the teenage girl. Figueroa showed up at an apartment in Clarksville where he thought he was going to have sex with the girl, but was met instead by federal agents and then started deleting apps from his phone. Well, the U.S. Attorney's Office for Middle Tennessee says Figueroa was sentenced yesterday to 10 years in federal prison for the sex crimes, another 30 months for trying to get rid of evidence, and once he gets out of prison, he'll serve another 10 years of supervised release. Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Got an update on an American who's been detained in Russia. This is the Wall Street Journal reporter, Evan Gershkovich. Lawyers have been able to visit with him. Both his employer and the White House say those are trumped-up charges, and the White House is moving to classify Gershkovich's holding as, quote, wrongfully detained, which would enable the allocation of extra resources and allow diplomats access to Gershkovich. Elizabeth Schulze tells the U.S. Secretary of State has signaled his belief in Gershkovich's innocence.
Secretary Blinken saying that in his mind, it's very clear that he was wrongfully detained, that Gershkovich is not accused of spying, as the Russians have repeatedly said. So one official tells us that this could come at any moment, this designation, that they've basically been working at the State Department to get this process going as soon as Gershkovich was arrested. But also Blinken making clear there is a process that it needs to go through to do due diligence. But this is obviously a priority to get it done as fast as possible.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Well, good afternoon. It is 7 minutes now past the hour, 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, and we're so glad that you're here for another exciting edition of The Drive. Coming up in about, 30 minutes from now, we'll be joined by Pete Hegseth, who is the weekend host of Fox and Friends on the Fox News Channel. And, boy, I'm telling you what, he also lives in Sumner County. And a more enthusiastic resident of Sumner County you'll not find anywhere. I wonder how enthusiastic he'll be in the middle of the thunderstorms that are about to hit Sumner County. Because, we are in the middle of a thunderstorm. And we got some severe thunderstorm warnings that are up for Davidson and Williams, where there's a big storm headed north of Nashville. We have another storm that is probably going to skirt right between Nashville and, let's say, might hit Brentwood. So these are just thunderstorms, no tornadic activity that we know of. So
right, I did just see a new severe thunderstorm warning added for Sumner and Wilson County. Until 4:36.
So it was for Davidson, and then they've extended it into Hendersonville and areas just north of Mount Juliet. Basically, that thunderstorm has been extended up to areas north of I-40.
Mm-hmm.
So Hendersonville, Nashville, Mount Juliet. North Mount Juliet, you've got some thunderstorms to deal with. Franklin thunderstorms coming in, headed right now from the west toward the Brentwood area. So be weather aware. Keep your head up and bring in the cushions or the inflatable pink flamingos that you might have floating on your pool. Too late. It's gone. I'll never see flow again. I wanted to talk a little bit, if I could, about this whole situation involving the expulsion of 3 Democrat members. So you got Gloria and the 2 Justins. Sounds like a good name for a 1970s rock band, right? Gloria and the 2 Justins. But you got Gloria Johnson, Justin Pearson, Justin Jones. Who have interrupted the activity of the floor of the House. And they've been expelled. 2 of them have been expelled from committees. One of them didn't have a committee assignment. And now the movement is underway, and it'll be considered by the state legislature, the House of Representatives. This is Wednesday, tomorrow evening, I think it will be. One way or the other tomorrow. And they will decide whether they should be expelled for their activities. Basically, what they did was they shut down the floor of the House. And they brought in bullhorns, and they were organizing protests in the gallery, which is the balcony area of the House chambers. So, and I'm reading a lot of friends on the other side who are saying, oh, well, they're just responding this way because, well, their microphones had been cut off. Well, if you believe that, you are in error. That's not the entire truth. And so, what I find is a lot of times when you try to point these things out to the people on the other side, why do you even bother? Because if you try to engage in dialogue, and I have on social media, because I got dragged into a bunch of this stuff, Cameron Sexton, put me on one of his emails. The Speaker of the House tagged me on one of his emails. And all of a sudden, I look and my phone is blowing up. And I've got all of this Twitter activity and all this, and people are yelling at me like, I'm just sitting around here enjoying my dinner. I don't know why everybody's mad at me. But, I understand. But if you try to engage with them and say, well, do you understand the facts of the matter? All you get is they spit venom and they just vomit at you. I'm sorry, I hate that word. I don't like to use that word, but that's what they do. They just blow up all over you. But they don't ever have a debate about the issues. They never talk about the facts. It's just they hate you because you disagree with them, and the facts don't matter. Well, the facts do matter. The facts absolutely do matter. And so let's talk about this for a moment. Anytime you have a legislative body of any kind cannot function without rules, without order. You have to have a plan. And in the Tennessee House, one of the first things they do when they form a new session is that the body has to pass the rules under which they will operate. and a lot of it is Robert Rules of Order and other things. But I mean, every legislative body has a set of rules under which they must operate, and then everybody votes, and they decide, okay, these are the rules that we all agree to abide by, and so that happens. And everybody understands how it is. Well, one of the rules under which the body operates is that you can't come to the floor and talk about things that are not germane to the debate that's taking place. Now, they have a time where you can bring in somebody and say, well, I've been down there. Right? This stuff drives me crazy. I don't like this stuff. But there's always this thing. Well, I would like to salute the Boy Scouts of Southern Williamson County, and they have these little things that they do. It's time where you can come in there and honor people, or you can have a moment to do something other than the legislation of the day. But but there are rules even for that. You can't do certain things during that time as well. And if you're in the middle of a debate about a certain bill, one of the rules is you can't talk about things that are not germane to the debate. If you allowed anybody to just go to the floor and just willy-nilly talk about anything, well, it would be talk radio. It'd be chaos is what it would be. but you can't do that. A body like that cannot function. But that's what these three Democrats would try to do from time to time. They would get in there and they'd say they were going to talk about one thing, and then they would take off in a whole different diatribe about something else, attacking this, that, or the other. And call a press conference. See if anybody comes. But to take up the valuable time of the entire body is selfish, it is self-centered, and that's why they have rules. You come in, you talk about the things that you need to talk about, the things that are up for consideration. You don't change the topic. You don't start spitting venom from the floor. You just don't do it. And so you get a warning generally, and if you continue to do it, they turn off your microphone, and they move on. That's the way it works in every legislative body that I've ever covered, and I've covered a bunch. So I don't understand it. That's what these guys did, these three individuals. They were accused of that. So on the day of, with all the history that has happened from time, so when they say, oh, well, they turned off our mics, so they turned off your mics because you weren't following the rules of the House of Representatives. You weren't following the General Assembly rules that you, by the way, agreed to, or the body agreed to. Everybody agreed to them. You can't do that. So it's not true that they were just had their microphones turned off anytime that they tried to talk. They were allowed to talk as long as they stayed within the boundaries of the rules. And they are absolutely within their rights. The leadership is within their rights to say, in this particular case, you just went a little too far. You brought a bullhorn in. You tried to create chaos. You tried to take over the body. You tried to organize the protesters in a way to shut down the entire House of Representatives. And it could have gotten really ugly had it not been for the brave work of the State Patrol, who kept it from unfolding. So when you have a situation like that, you are well within your rights to have a conversation about, well, how should we now treat somebody who has shown a complete and total disregard for the institution? And what they're going to do is, I think they're going to expel the three members. It looks like it's going to happen. Everything I indicate is that the votes are there. People are hacked off. Now, when this first happened, the Democrat leadership in the House, they were all upset about what had happened. Until they found out that, well, there might actually be some repercussions. And then it's, well, you can't do this. Rumph. Now, honestly, have some integrity, would you? So this whole matter is going to go down in some form tomorrow. The Speaker of the House had a really interesting analogy when he was with us yesterday. And I think it resonates with a lot of people who work in corporate settings, for example. It's that we're doing the same thing that would happen in a corporate setting. Imagine, for example, that somebody has come into the workplace and has done something egregiously wrong. and then that they have violated the rules of conduct that are expected of everyone in the workplace. Well, then what would happen? Well, the HR people would get involved in it, wouldn't they? Yes, they would. And then that person, would be probably dismissed from their job. That happens in corporate world all the time when someone acts outside the norms of behavior that is expected in the workplace. He's right about that, the speaker was. It happens. And so why should the House of Representatives, the Tennessee House, be any different? I can't answer that question. I don't know the answer. It seems like to me, if you go in there and understand that you're going to be violating the standards of conduct, then you need to understand that there are repercussions. But see, Democrats, they don't believe in repercussions for bad behavior, do they? The speaker is 1,000% correct about this. The body is going to take action, and I predict that these 3 individuals are going to be expelled. Now, what happens then? Well, apparently it goes back to the counties. It's entirely possible, I suppose, the county in a fit of pique could say, we're sending the 3 people right back to you. And then what would happen is basically you would have no representation because the body would not recognize those individuals when they returned. So, that's not going to happen. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But again, they brought this on themselves. They violated the rules of the House that everybody agreed to. It wasn't a case of their microphones being turned off. And anybody who tries to make that case to you does not understand the basic way that a legislative body operates. So, yeah, maybe they'll have an election and they'll get sent back, and that'll be a whole different matter. We'll see what happens. But for now, they're going to be expelled. And the counties are going to have a decision to make about who they're probably going to return. I'm telling you, I'm not a whip, but I'm hearing that the votes are there to kick these 3 individuals out. Say so long to Gloria and the 2 Justins. It is 20 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Have you noticed how unreliable things have become these days? Like when someone tells you it'll be ready at 4 p.m. and you find out, well, it's not ready at 4 p.m. People are really tired of that stuff. Well, if you've had it with unreliable vehicle repair shops, why not come to Eurofix? Eurofix turns unreliable into reliable. And Eurofix has your vehicle ready when it's supposed to be ready, so you don't stand around waiting. Eurofix repairs all European cars with quality that beats the dealer without dealer pricing. That's because dealer repair shops are designed to pay virtually all of the dealership's overhead, and that's a lot of money. Why would you want to pay for that? At Eurofix, reliable also means a 3-year nationwide warranty plus a free loaner car with every repair appointment. Make sure you call ahead, as loaner cars are very popular. So if you're tired of unreliable repair shops, come to where it is reliable, Eurofix. Family-owned for 24 years. Call 844-EUROFIX or visit myEurofix.com. That's 844-EUROFIX or visit myEurofix.com.
Weather, folks, that's what we're watching. Thunderstorm warnings right now. Eastern Lewis County, northeastern Lawrence, Murray County, Davidson, Sumner, Wilson. We're monitoring it all right now. Heavy winds, possible hail. Let's talk about it. 4:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I have a report from the field. A very reliable source, my sister, tells me that she's driving into town now and that it's just horrible.
Oh, I think that sums it up. Yeah,
she's not from here, so she just said this is horrible. I said, well, I mean, traffic can be bad here. That's horrible. It's raining and it's horrible. So anyway,
welcome to our lives.
By the way, how's that picture?
It's better. Let's check it out. Yeah, it's better.
If you were watching on Super Talk TV, I deeply apologize because apparently I made some adjustments to the camera, and I don't know why I should be messing with this technology. I shouldn't come in here and just mess things up, but I made some, and apparently Chris told me that it was like we were having a nasal examination. The camera was just a little too close.
Yeah, just a bit.
We love you, Brian, but not that much.
Nobody needs to see that. Nobody's got any time for something like that. Okay, let's do the talk. Keep an eye on the weather. These thunderstorms. I don't see anything that looks like it's tornadic activity. But I mean, you've got a thunderstorm right now. I'm looking at current radar. There's one. Hang on a second. I just lost the picture. There's one out west of town headed toward Belmead right now, and it's coming right for Nashville. It's going to skirt north of Brentwood, hitting Belmead at the moment, and be going right into Nashville. There was another one due north of Nashville, pretty good thunderstorm. That one looks like one to watch. But, I mean, this is what we're going to be in for the next couple of hours as this front starts to move through. I mean, we hit 80 what? 80. It's still outside right now in the studios, 83.
Yep.
So, it's warm outside, and this front was going to knock temperatures down into the 50s tomorrow. So it's a pretty significant front. Let's stay weather aware and keep an eye on it. I see another one, by the way, coming in to the south and west of Mount Pleasant. That's still a long ways off, but keep an eye on that one as well. So we're keeping an eye on it for you. Take it easy out there on the highways and byways. And I told my sister that that she's coming in because she wants to meet Nate Bargatzi.
Yeah, a lot of buzz about Nate.
My sister is from the Texas Panhandle, and by the way, I count myself incredibly blessed when it comes to the sister. I got the best sister in the world.
I'll vouch for that. Yeah.
I mean, she's one of the loveliest human. I mean, people say, "What the hell happened to you, Wilson?" Because I mean, she can't possibly be related to you, but she is, and I look at it and I say, I got the best sister in the world. And she is. There's never been a human being who's ever said an evil word about my sister because it just doesn't happen. People love my sister, and she's just an incredibly good and giving and good Christian woman. And by the way, involved in a charity that's doing a lot of good. She started a charity upon her retirement, and it's doing a great deal of good for kids that are in foster care, and really do need somebody helping them out. And we would do well to look in greater detail as to what they're doing in the Texas Panhandle and parts of Texas. And by the way, the organization is called Nashville Angels, and it's called the Amarillo Angels. They have a Nashville's Angels as well. So they do good work here. And if you care about kids that are in foster care, this is an organization that, number one, does a lot of good for those kids, but also they have metrics that actually can show that they have improved these kids, their likelihood of graduating, doing better in school, a whole host of things. So I'm very blessed that my sister has come to visit for a few days. She's in town for a thing, and she'll be coming in to meet Nate a little bit later. Again, so right after the news here in a few moments, we'll be joined by Pete Hegseth. And then after that, at 5:05, Nate Bargatzi will be with us. A lot of fun going on here, and we're keeping an eye on the weather as well. It is now 4:30 on Super Talk 99.7.
.30, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories right now, looking at severe thunderstorm warnings in central Davidson, southwest Sumner, and northern Wilson County. Those all just went out of effect. You look at Murray County and Lawrenceburg. Those thunderstorm warnings still in effect for the next 15 minutes. This is all going to come in harsh straight-line winds. We're talking 60 to 65 miles an hour. Potential for nickel-sized hail if you go down towards Brentwood. You may see pea-sized hail towards downtown Franklin, Cool Springs. It's more likely just going to be some rain. And if you look at power outages right now, due to this intense wind, they are upping. Cheatham County, 836 right now without power. Davidson right now, over 1,000 people without power due to this harsh wind and this storm coming through the midstate right now. We'll keep you updated with it right here on WTN. Weather and traffic in 5 minutes. To some international news, China vows retaliation. The Taiwanese president met with House Speaker Representative Kevin McCarthy and other unnamed members of Congress from both parties at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in Southern California today. The unofficial private meeting has drawn opposition from China, which views it as a show of support for Taiwanese independence. Beijing says Taiwan is a part of China, and after today's meeting, President Tsai Ing-wen and Speaker McCarthy delivered some remarks.
In the discussion with congressional leaders this morning, I reiterated Taiwan's commitment to defending the peaceful status quo, where the people of Taiwan may continue to thrive in a free and open society.
Ing-wen also said it was good to come to the United States to pay tribute to a, quote, distinguished American president and world leader, end quote. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. You often hear me talk about diversification in the investing process, but how do we diversify? Well, we look for things that move in dissimilar fashion historically. Some of those market areas might be really small companies or really large companies, or very growth-oriented companies or value-oriented companies. And one of the things that we find is that when we diversify between these various segments, we can reduce the volatility of the portfolio because they don't move in tandem with each other historically. Now, we can do that in U.S. markets, we can do that in international markets, and in emerging markets. And when we can dampen that volatility, we can help get ourselves a little bit of a better outcome as far as knowing what we might likely have in the future or how we can take income from our investment portfolio. Now, we also want to add fixed income or bonds to the mix as well. Now, if we know that we need to do this, what's the best way to do it? Well, one of the things that we often teach is this concept of market efficiency. This won the Nobel Prize in economics as well. And it's the idea that if I'm investing in, let's say, small value stocks, if we look at professional managers and their ability to say, hey, should I have this stock or that one, and picking companies or areas of the market, we find that they typically get lower returns than the market does on its own. They just add expense and they can add a lot of volatility. One of the things we want to avoid is anything that can hurt your returns and increase your risk in the investing process. To learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call or call 615-851-1950.
It is 37 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy. I need some guidance here, Chris. Are we ready to go forward?
I do not have Pete yet. I'm going to dial him up. I've got his number in here. I haven't heard from him yet, so I'm going to give him a ring.
Yeah, we'll give him a holler. I have a feeling that we may be dealing with a weather situation because there are some thunder showers that are developing here, and they simply are creating havoc. I mean, just a few moments ago, I saw all the phone lines go dead. And now they came back up. So I think we're having that going on right now. But you need to let me just look at the radar for a moment while we're waiting to see if we can connect with Pete Hegseth. Right now, there is a thunderstorm that is hitting. It's right over Nashville. It is destined toward the Hendersonville area. There is a severe thunderstorm warning that's in effect for the areas of. Let's see. I'm trying to read this. Severe thunderstorm warning for southern Sumner in Middle Tennessee, northwestern Wilson in Middle Tennessee. That's one to watch. And then there is another one in Franklin right now, severe thunderstorm warning, 21 minutes remaining on that for northeastern Williamson County in Middle Tennessee. And these appear to be just events with heavy rain. All right, now joining us on the line, as he always does on Wednesday, our good friend Pete Hegseth, who is the host of Fox and Friends Weekend Edition and also a resident of Sumner County. What's the weather like up where you are, Pete?
Yeah, you described it right. It's pretty bad. It's coming.
Yeah, it's a heck of a thunderstorm coming through right now. Well, we got so much to cover. Let's start out with the events of yesterday. Donald Trump going to New York. He speaks about 10 words there, but he had plenty to say by the time he got to Mar-a-Lago. And this, Pete, as I look at it, and I look to some of the really smart legal analysts that Fox News brings in, they all seem to think that this is a pretty weak case.
Very weak case. It was a sad day yesterday. It was a pathetic day. It was... And then to get a chance to analyze what was unsealed and realize they have no case. They know they have no case, but the spectacle is the case. And then they designate December 4th as the next hearing. So this is going to hang over us all the way until December 4th as motions are filed, and that's right before the primary begins. Really bad week for the Republic, very good week for Donald Trump. I think it made him the nominee on the Republican side because he's become a symbol and an avatar, a secular avatar for what the man will do, what the establishment will do to prevent someone who challenges them. So it was Alvin Bragg looked small. The charges look weak because it's a reflection of weakness when you're trying to target a political opponent that directly for that long.
Well, and so we had a conversation here earlier, and here I'm trying to figure out, are they playing checkers or are they playing chess? Is this simply Bragg doing something to inflate his reputation? Is it because if you look at the poll numbers, the real question I have is you see that people, Republicans who are being, even the Fox poll shows that like Trump now leads DeSantis by 30 points, and it all seems to be as a result of the talk of this indictment starting to circulate, even though it probably shouldn't have circulated. It is circulating, and the numbers, and it seems like Republicans were coming back to Trump. Are the Democrats pulling this because they want Trump to be their opponent, or are they doing it to hurt Trump? I can't figure out which is the case.
I can't clearly determine either, and I have you never want to underestimate your opponent, but I think that is a little bit too cute strategically to believe that the powers on high are directing Alvin Bragg to do it so as to create this, especially when legal analysts that you and I both watch believe that other cases are stronger, even if I think they're bunk, the Georgia case, the Mar-a-Lago case, and therefore would be a better opening shot as opposed to here we go again. I actually think it's a form of rabid checkers. I think they're still in get Trump mode. Alvin Bragg knows he'll be a left-wing celebrity for at least attempting for this historic first. You see the giddiness. I think if it has the consequence of raising him to become the nominee, they're like, fine. But more importantly, they want to get rid of him. They want to indict him. They want him prevented from running. You heard it from Biden and from others. So I think it's rabid checkers.
Well, what do you read into these polls that show that Trump is now surging so dramatically? I mean, there's 2 polls out there where Trump beats DeSantis among Republican voters. We're talking 33 points. One says 31 points. I think the Fox poll said 30. That's really a dramatic. That's a whooping right there.
And that was before even the last couple of days. So that was just with the announcement that an arrest was likely or an indictment was likely. He was already ahead. He got a huge bump from it. I really like Ron DeSantis. I do. I think he's been a fantastic governor, and I think he's a great conservative. But I don't think he did well on rolling out his campaign. With his book and everything else, he sort of tepidly took shots at Trump, like, well, I don't know what it would take to pay a porn star, but wouldn't name him by name. And then his Ukraine stances were sort of pro and against at the same time. It just wasn't a good rollout. So you're either going to take on Trump by punching, or you're going to keep getting punched as he is, and he didn't find his footing. So I think people looked at him and felt like not the puncher that's going to do it. And, oh, by the way, they're going after Trump. They would go after me. I think these last 2 weeks made Trump the nominee. I don't know how someone else campaigns against this whirlwind that sucks up all the oxygen and the fact that he remains a historic figure.
He really does suck up the oxygen, and you're right about that. I mean, yesterday that was the only story that anybody was covering. So here we have a story that is both local and national in that it started out as a tragic event here with a school shooting, and it has had so many different ramifications. Both on the national and the local scene. We haven't talked since all this went down. Your thoughts about, number one, the shooting and how America has reacted to this and the whole transgenderism thing, which has gotten caught up in this as well.
Yeah. I mean, just gut-wrenching, absolutely gut-wrenching. Everyone in Middle Tennessee, everyone across Tennessee, everyone across the country affected by the sheer evil that is the idea of killing innocents, especially 9-year-old kids. My kids go to a classical Christian school, not, like everybody else listening here, not that far from a very similar school. I mean, it's jarring to feel it. And the universal reaction should just be, this is evil. And, of course, we all want to know the motives, unless you're the left-wing media, which almost immediately, this is what was crazy, Brian. You saw it too. I'm sure you covered it and talked about it. It was protect the trans community, and they're under attack, as Karine Jean-Pierre said, and it's such a window into their world of narratives where they only build up who they decide can be a victim, and Christians are not a part of that group. And so they'll say a few pro forma things, but go back to the trans rallies as if that's a group directly under assault, especially in Tennessee, where they've simply said, no drag shows for kids. And how about no pornographic material in schools? And we don't think minors should be transitioning because they don't know who they are yet, and it's child abuse to do so. So the common sense stuff that Tennessee does gets mischaracterized, and it shows you what an upside down world we live in, Brian. It's jarring how quickly they went to that as opposed to just remembering the victims. And I think Bill Lee's been right to say we're going to go to school security. We're going to do it for public schools. We're going to give money to private schools. Everybody's rethought that, and but prayers and condolences to everyone affected.
Well,
so tragic.
One of the things that the governor said is there's 3 pillars. We're going to tighten the security around the schools. We're going to hire more SROs and all that's, as things go, those are fairly easy things to accomplish. It just takes money. But the third thing is we're going to look at, a potential, and I hate to use this term because it sends off red flags, but when they talk about a red flag law, you have a situation where how do you fix the problem of, okay, people are mentally ill, they have weapons, they need to be separated from their weapons if they're a danger to themselves or others, but at the same time protecting the rights of, let's say, that guy who just comes back from a military engagement and he's got a little PTSD. Should you take his guns away? I mean, how do you find the balance in that? It's such a sticky wicket.
It is. I mean, historically, medicine has categorized gender dysphoria as a mental illness. So where do you go in that direction as well? I mean, I think red flag laws are a red herring. There can be very extreme circumstances where parents intervene and say, I have a kid, I have a child, I have someone, or a teenager, or legitimately clinical mental. I just think that's the kind of thing you throw out there, but hopefully the common sense of Tennessee says, there are ways we can harden our schools, but we're not going to take Second Amendment rights away from people.
Now, so the other thing that started out as a local story, which has become now a national story, because I see everybody making national appearances, is what's happening with our state legislature, and they're going to expel these 3 Democrat members who disrupted the chamber and did not follow the rules that everybody agrees to operate under in the legislative body. And it's become a thing, well, you're trying to squelch free speech, and it's really not about that at all. But that's the way it's being characterized by some of our friends in the mainstream media.
Yeah, let them characterize it that way. That's not what it is. We know it's not what it is. Act boldly. From what I've seen, it looks like Speaker Cameron Sexton has been great on it. He said, yeah, we could censure them, or we can recognize that they came here to be activists and facilitated de facto. They want to call things insurrections. We can too. Trying to open the doors, push people in, take over the gavel and with the bullhorn. I hope they expel them. They should. I mean, you want to be a legislator, or do you want to be an activist? Make a decision. But it's not your job in that role to disrupt proceedings. So I think it's great they're doing that, and it sends a warning that will not be tolerated. And very few legislatures are willing to do that. They tolerate it, and then they get more of it. You get more of what you tolerate. That's not how the legislative process works. And I think what the Republicans are doing in the legislature is correct.
Well, okay. And so now I've noticed of late, because I've been sort of tagged on some things that got caught up in a bigger discussion. Boy, I am shocked, stunned, and amazed at the vitriol and the venom of the other side. They won't have a conversation with you about anything. They just want to slash and burn. It's very troubling to me where we are as a nation when we can't have conversations about the difficult issues of the day.
You and I can. I know a lot of people who deal in logic, free thinking, can understand arguments, tolerate dissent. That's what tolerance is tolerating ideas you don't like. But when you strip God out of society the way the left is rejected, then politics and things of this world become a zero-sum game. It becomes their religion. And so when you won't, dive in on climate zealotry, or you won't wave a trans flag, then you're not to be tolerated or listened to. You're to be destroyed. You're to be shut down. You're to be arrested, charged, wherever they'd love to go in the future. I think listen, with God in your heart, you have humility, an understanding of the limits of human nature. And when you get rid of that, you go to a lot of dangerous places. And that's why this is not a right-wing problem. This is not a conservative problem. This is an intolerant left problem. But it's what they're pumping into middle schools and high schools and colleges, and we're going to get more of it. And I don't mean to be a pessimist, but I feel like our discourse is going to get worse before it gets better. This is why we love having you on, Pete. So well put. We really appreciate you joining us. So buckle down out there in Sumner County. Bring in the cushions, okay? Likewise. All right. Talk to you soon. God bless. Bye-bye. It is now 50 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
Some severe thunderstorm warnings going out of effect right now in Middle Tennessee. That severe thunderstorm watch still in effect for a large portion of the mid-state. It did move east, though. We're going to talk at it, take a look at all the main threats as far as weather's concerned in Middle Tennessee tonight. Right here, 5 o'clock, Super Talk, 99.7 WTN.
All right, we're cleaning up the studio to make it a little neater, and because we're going to have a special guest here after the news with Mac Maury. Nate Bargatzi has got a big show on the 15th of April at Bridgestone Arena, and he's going to be in studio here with us in just a few moments to talk a little bit about that. And, man, it's been an amazing career. He is just crushing it in the world of comedy right now. Nate Bargatzi will be our special guest coming up in just a few moments, so stay with us. Now, when you hear Genesis Diamonds, you think extreme value. You think amazing prices, no middleman markups, bigger, better, for less, and that's all true. But what else is true? Well, the Genesis experience is second to none. It's totally professional, laid-back luxury, relaxed and informative. You're dealing with non-commissioned experts, not clerks. You're offered a refreshment the minute you walk in, and from there, it just gets better and better. And at Genesis, it's all about high quality, no compromises, exquisite hand-packed diamonds that are cut above what you find in other stores. You see, Genesis gets the first pick of the best diamonds from cutters all over the world, and the ones that they reject are the ones you see in the mega chain stores and online. At Genesis, you can get that designer ring she wants. They have the designers you won't find in other places. Genesis Diamonds, it starts with the best value price, but that's just the beginning. The quality, the experience are truly on a whole different level. Also, check out their amazing luxury pre-owned Rolexes, hand-selected in pristine condition. Genesis Diamond, 2 locations, Green Hills and Cool Springs.
Five o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top story. 79 degrees right now in Nashville, a rainy day, and some severe thunderstorms rolling their ways right now through Middle Tennessee. A severe thunderstorm watch for most of the mid-state right now in effect until 9 p.m. Now, that has moved a little east. Those western counties have been taken out of striking distance. Dixon and anything right in line with Dixon now out of range for that thunderstorm watch. Severe thunderstorm warnings going out of effect right now as we speak in Sumner and in Wilson County. And if you look at this storm system, it's going to make its way right now to Gallatin, Lebanon, and it'll make its way over to Carthage and Smithville in northeast Tennessee in the next 20 minutes. As far as any more severe storms for Davidson and Williamson County, those don't look to be likely anymore. There may be some localized flooding concerns overnight, and there is a flood watch for all of Middle Tennessee until tomorrow afternoon, 1 p.m., so that'll be something to watch, but it'll just be more rain and no severe storms for Davidson and Williamson County. We'll keep a watch for the rest of the mid-state weather and traffic in just a few minutes. Right now, Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer signs a bill repealing the state's nearly century-old law that criminalized abortion. Ike Ajaji.
The bill made it a felony, punishable by up to 4 years in prison for anyone who administers drugs for inducing a miscarriage. After the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade last summer, questions remained about whether or not the 1931 law would be put back in place. In September, a state judge there ruled the ban unconstitutional, and a couple of months later, Michigan voters chose to add protections for reproductive rights. The state's House and Senate passed a bill last month revoking revoking the law to which Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer signed, saying in part, standing up for people's fundamental freedoms is the right thing to do.
And here in Tennessee, a bill that exempts certain pregnancies that can put the mother's life at risk just passed the Tennessee Senate. It's now headed to Governor Lee's desk. Staying in Tennessee, State Senate Majority Leader Jack Johnson tells WTN that legislation to strengthen school safety is headed for key votes in the General Assembly starting today. The bill isn't just for public schools. Private schools are also included.
I think it's appropriate that the state have some requirements there relative to the safety that you provide for those students. But I do want to be very clear that I recognize, and I think the vast majority of my colleagues do as well, this is not going to lead to some type of governmental intervention in terms of how you teach or what you teach. This is just simply about school safety.
And that legislation could pass one of two key Senate committees as soon as today. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Well, good afternoon. It's 7 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair and on the air, and I've been looking forward to this interview for a long, long time. If you love comedy, then no doubt you have heard the name Nate Bargatzi. He's a local guy who has done extremely well for himself. And now he's got a big concert coming up where they're going to sell out Bridgestone Arena on the 15th of April. By the way, I'm going to be there. I got tickets. I can't tell you how excited I am.
Oh, that's awesome.
Nate Bargatzi joins us now in the studio. Okay, so Nate, I got 1,000 questions. I'm really happy to have you on the program.
No, thanks for having me.
I don't expect a comedian to come in and sort of give away their material. But I am very interested in the process by which you find the things that you talk about. I mean, I watch your stuff, and it's observational stuff that, we've all had experiences like them. It's just that you have a way of taking those moments and finding the humor in them in the way that makes it so incredibly fun to watch when you tell your stories.
Mm-hmm.
How do you find that stuff?
I don't know. It's like a lot of it, you talk and you say something, and then you want to see if the people are going to, like, how they laugh at it. Like, sometimes you can tell they're laughing at you. I always look at it, they can either laugh at you or with you, so it doesn't really matter. Like, they're laughing.
Yeah.
So it's either they're like, oh, they picture you in that scenario, or they're like, oh, I know what that scenario is, and I've been through that, like with my wife or with whatever, Starbucks or whatever it was. So you just, like, I just kind of throw it out there and be like, this thing happened, and it was kind of funny, and then so you just see. I mean, I think it helps. Like, I grew up here from Old Hickory, like, a pretty normal fan. I mean, my dad's a magician, but as normal as you can, growing up around here, and you still live life kind of like everybody else does. And so then you can pull from a lot of familiar situations.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think that the moment that I became a huge Nate Bargatzi fan, as just to turn a phrase here, you had me at dead horse. I mean, that story, when I heard that story, that said, this is a guy that I'm just going to be in love with, because that's my all-time favorite story. So I know that in journalism, as I grew up in journalism, you're going around and you're covering a story and you hear a thing that happens, a soundbite or something, and you go, oh, that's the story right there. That's the news in this thing. Is it the same way when you're going through life and you hear a phrase or something happens, you go, oh, this is going to be a good bit?
Oh, yeah. Like the dead horse one is, I was with my buddy Brian Bates, who's on our podcast, but me and him are driving out. We see the horse. The story is exactly how it happened, where I just talked about it, and then he didn't see it, and then we came back through. And like Brian always said, like, he thought, well, when the horse was alive, we saw it alive. He was like, well, that's the end of the joke. But then I told it that night, and you just start running in your brain. You're like, well, if I can set it up to where I'd make it where you don't know I'm going to realize this horse is still alive. Like, you're trying to make it be completely something separate, just to drive back, just to be like, no, standing up, I learned horses.
You turn around and come back. That's right.
Yeah. So you happen, in the moment, you can kind of just be. You can kind of tell. Yes, not always, but sometimes you can kind of you're like, this is something.
Are you a guy who practices a lot, or do you work it out on stage?
You kind of work it out on stage. I don't ever do it in privately.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm surprised by that.
Yeah. No, yeah. It's you just do it I'm running it in my head all the time. So my brain, I'm sure a lot of people, just doesn't turn off. And so you're just constantly, there's times I'll get up in the night to go pee, and then you just start thinking of one joke, and you're think, oh, I bet I could say this thing right in this part. And then you're just kind of always thinking about it.
I heard another comedian one time say that sometimes it's just the inflection of a word. Sometimes it works. Sometimes is it like that when you're out there? You tell it one time and it sort of falls flat, but then another time you tell it just with slight different emphasis on one word, or say it slightly differently, and it works.
Yeah, it's the rhythm of the word too. So it can be your timing. Is you can just go right to it, where you could, if you want something to be funny and you're just you go right to the thing, or sometimes you need to say, and then the horse went over, and then the is actually pretty important, because it's the rhythm of those three it's just trying to give you some breath maybe in between something, and because you don't want it to be too quick. So if I know I want to make sure they understand, if I need them to understand this word, I need this word not to be kind of you don't maybe hear it or whatever. I need you to hear it.
Catch that one.
Catch that one. So you can kind of like put some dumb words in front of it just to make sure you're hearing the main part.
Yeah. Have you ever had one that you thought was a surefire, just a, milk up the nose funny, and it never worked?
So with my Starbucks joke, I say in there, I've never bought milk publicly in the history of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I talk about that, and so I had a joke about the reason that joke, where that came from, was I had a joke about saying, like, you don't buy milk unless women are in your life. And so, it wasn't, my mom, we always had milk. Then before I was married, I don't think I ever bought milk. And then then you get married, then it's like, hey, we need more milk. And so that idea was always in my mind. And so I always thought that idea was very funny, but I could never figure out the wording to figure it out. And then I just had to, sometimes you're like, you want it to be its own joke, but it can't be. And so that ends up being, I put it in the Starbucks saying, I've never bought milk publicly in the history of my life.
Just a sort of a side.
Just a side, but it makes that joke
better. Yeah, that's interesting. Some of your best material, as people would say this about my show, because my best material comes when I include stuff about my wife, who I think you know.
I do know.
And
she knows my teeth very well. Yeah.
She has her hands in the mouth of many interesting people, that's for sure. As a dental hygienist, I should explain that. But sometimes I talk about what I call Dawn, Cabana Wife, on this program, and we have I talk about Cabana Wife things all the time. People love it. You also bring your wife into it, but I heard you say that you never bring up anything without clearing it with her first.
Yeah.
That's how you have worked it out in your life, that you know that there are places that you want to go with the comedy, because it's such a rich vein of things to mine, but you've got to make sure that it's cool at home.
I'll definitely try something before I tell her, and then afterwards it would only be the people that night would know. And then I'll tell her, like, hey, I did this the other day. And then, so I'll tell her, and I'm like, it works. My wife is, I think being with me before I started, we met at Applebee's on Thompson Lane here in Nashville. And she was with me before I started comedy. So she's been there the whole time. She's got a great sense of humor. She likes, she can make fun of herself and stuff like that. So she goes along I'm very lucky that she goes along very well with it. And I think being together since the beginning, is she's been a part of it the whole time too. And so it's, and you try to make fun of yourself. You got to balance it out. When I first started, it would sometimes get too mean. It would seem like it's too mean. And so then you have to learn you have to show love. And if you don't, if the crowd doesn't believe you love your wife, they're going to just be like, well, you should not be with her. Like, this sounds awful. So you have to show love. So then that's why you got to balance it out to be like, all right, I can be dumb in this. Maybe I can, I try to be dumb and all. I just try to make me be the punching bag and somewhat. And then you can talk about all this other stuff.
Yeah, but I must say, I think that's some of the biggest laughs that you get, though, when you go down that pathway. So I'm looking at your schedule, and there's some interesting things I want to ask you about. You start out in Johnson City, Tennessee, and then you go straight to Bridgestone Arena.
Yes.
I would imagine very different venues.
I would think the Johnson City's, I think, is a big place.
Really?
But it's I think it is. It might be 4,000 people or something. You do a lot of hockey arenas where they're these 4,000 or 5,000 seat places. But obviously that's going to be an awesome show. But then Bridgestone's going to be, this will be the biggest show I've ever done in my life.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Now, are you sold out?
I believe it's sold out.
Wow.
I believe so.
Now, that's an unusual thing for a comedian to sell out an arena that large.
Oh, yeah. And we're in the round, so my stage is in the middle. And then everybody will be seated around.
Have you worked in the round before? Because that's a different thing, right?
My last special was in the round. I've never worked in the round of this big of a thing, but I've done the round. I love the round because I move. You just kind of have to, you're always just kind of making a circle. And it just makes you move more, and you tell the jokes a little bit. You get a little more into them just because you're having to kind of move. And so I love the round for that.
But that's a big show.
That's a giant show. What's crazy is when I first started and I was in New York and I was handing out flyers. I would daydream about getting to play Bridgestone. And it was Bridgestone over any like Madison Square Garden. I mean, you want to play everything, but Bridgestone was the one because it's home, and home's always meant the most. Yeah. And so it's to be able to do it like now. It's pretty crazy because not that you don't think you can get there, but you also don't think you can get there. You know, you're let yourself daydream, but you don't really. You're like, well, I'm not gonna. Why would I be the one that gets to go there?
So, what's it like? What's the ride been like? Because I mean, you go from working small venues, and then you get a little bigger, and then you get a special, and you go viral, and people start to know about you, and then the next thing you know, you're doing arenas like Bridgestone Arena. What has that ride been like from the small venues to where you are today?
It's I remember someone once said, I was a comic, but it's like all of it happens slower than you want, but faster than you think, and even though this has been 20 years, so it's not like it's been super fast, but you just get in these little parts that you're like, all right, you know, first time I go headline a comedy club, no one's there to see you. You're just there headlining, but that's a big deal. Then people start coming to see you. Then you go to a theater, and then and these things start getting bigger and bigger, and they just kind of like it's weirdly like they're slowly happening, but it's also very fast. And then you do hit where I'm at now, where it just speeds up. Like after the last special, you can just tell, like I just did where the Pittsburgh Penguins play, PPG Arena, and there's like 10,000 people there, and you're just going like, I don't know. You don't know. Part of you doesn't know who they're there to see. You don't feel like it's you. You're just like, I don't know who there's someone else.
You're looking around. Is there somebody behind me? Yeah.
You feel like you're like, I think I could just walk around. Like, because I mean, what I love is the audience that comes out. The audience that comes out is I am them. Like I'm not. You know, I always look at it as like it's my parents. I do everything to make my parents. I want them to be happy and like what I do. And so I look at when you go to the crowd, you're like, I want to make everybody happy. I love when like grandmothers come up because they come to shows and they are they love it so much, and because they can go with their kids and they can go with their families.
And I wanted to ask you about that, and I've talked to you about this before. I love the fact that you work clean, and that you know you're edgy and you're funny. But I mean, you work, and you can take any family member to any one of your shows, and it would be just fine. That's important to you. You've said.
Oh, very. I mean, you know, it's not like I do comedy for kids, but you're like, there's 10-year-olds or 9-year-olds at the show, and it's their first comedy show. And
but they wouldn't be there.
They wouldn't be there
if they didn't know that they could trust you to be the kind of comedian that you are.
Well, it depends on the parents they grow up with. I knew some that, you know, I have a bunch of my comedy friends. They have kids and they take them to stuff. I'm like, what are you doing? But yeah, it depends like where they go. But I think it makes it, you know, like when I see those kids, I always like, you know, like if I see a kid, I like to really, if I can, try to talk to them or take a picture with them or something. But it like that means the most because I know as an adult too, as having a 10-year-old, you like watching them watch stuff. The same way too with my dad. My dad and our friend Wayne Denton, who we talked about, I took them to see Tim Hawkins, very very funny Christian comic, but he's huge and very funny. But I remember taking them and getting to watch them laugh at him. It's very fun to watch your family laugh at stuff. And so, like, that's what I like is you get to bring that joy.
Yeah, your daughter often opens shows for you, and
yeah, she
please welcome my dad, and she announces that you onto the stage. Does she get how big you are?
You know, I mean, I don't know because she's. I don't think so. I mean, she knows, but it's just hard when you're in it. Like, you know, it's like my dad was a magician. Or, you know, your kids, like, they're not going to think, they just know this is all you've done.
Right.
So they just, like, are around it so much.
Just seems normal to them.
Just seems normal. We went and saw 21 Pilots, a great band that is clean, actually. And they're very cool and, like, all that stuff. So, I love what they do. And so you can take your kids to that, and it doesn't feel like you're at some kid's show. It feels like it's a very cool thing. I mean, their music is, I walked out
it's
to their
edgy,
music.
yeah.
Yeah. And so, but I told my daughter then, I was like, you think your dad can play this arena? And she was like, I don't know. I don't think, you know. Yeah. And I was like, all right.
Well, maybe someday, I'll just have to prove you wrong.
Yeah.
So what's on the future? What's on the horizon for Nate Bargatze? Beyond this amazing tour that's going to take you to Australia, New Zealand.
Oh, yeah. I know. Crazy. Went to Europe. which was why I've never been to Europe. Europe's so old. It's old.
It is so.
It's unreal.
Yeah.
You realize how young we are as a country when you go to Europe. They got a McDonald's older than our country.
Do they get you there?
They did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because they're regular people. Because everybody's a regular person, and everybody has a family, and everybody has that's what's awesome. Is you go do these jokes, and you're like, yeah, dude, everybody just wants to have fun and just talk about goof off a little bit, and be a break.
But of course, you're working in places where English is well understood and spoken.
Yeah. I mean, we're not.
But you've talked about how difficult it is to do a comedy show when the people in the audience don't particularly speak a lot of English.
No, that one is, that one wasn't great. That was a tough one.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You say something's not right here, then you find out that
1 hour.
Yeah.
A family. That guy that booked me was they were a fan in this corporate show, but all his employees spoke Spanish. And I mean, spoke Spanish. It was, it's a lot of times you go to Europe, it's a lot of second language.
Right.
Their second language is English, but a lot of these people spoke Spanish. It was with their families, and it was a very special night for them. And then they just had to listen to me just do gibberish.
Because they didn't understand a word of it.
No. Why? No.
What did you think was going on?
I mean, I just was you start looking pretty hard at the crowd because you're this is not going good. You know where people are supposed to laugh and they're not laughing.
Yeah, we have that experience here on this program about once a day. Nate, I wish we had more time, but I want to tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time to come down and be with us. And I'm nothing but excited about the career that is developing for you and the things that are in your horizon, and just all the luck in the world. I'll look forward to seeing you. I'll be, way in the back in the corner in the dark at Bridgestone Arena, but I'm looking forward to the show.
Thank you. You've been very, very nice to me, and I truly appreciate it.
All right. And my wife promises to go easy on you on the next cleaning.
I know. I don't, I make her every time she's like, what are you doing? I go, I don't know. I'm trying to do better. Yeah.
It is 24 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
Got a severe thunderstorm watch for a lot of the mid-state. That's until 9 p.m. Western counties going to out of striking distance. We're going to talk about all the weather here and the threats that it's bringing to Middle Tennessee. 5:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Oh, what fun that was!
That was great.
I mean, I think he's a really tremendously lovely guy.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, just so humble and so appreciative of all the things that have happened to him. I mean, you meet interesting people over the course of your career, and I can tell you that I've been excited to meet some people as doing an interview here or there over the years in television. I was never more excited than I was today, because I truly love the guy as a comedian, and I think he's a genuinely really decent dude.
Oh yeah,
and
absolutely, just a genuine guy for sure.
Yeah.
Did the wolves in the hallway scoop him up?
I don't know. Did they, Mac?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, pretty sure they got him.
I mean, it was vultures circling.
There were vultures literally circling in the hall. See, we have 5 radio stations on this floor, and all the radio stations heard that Nate was coming. How did you get him? Well, we'd love to have him on our show, and so they were hovering around as soon as we got through here, and I think he's moved on to some of the other radio stations that we owned, and that tells you what a decent guy is.
Yeah, what a great guy is.
I mean, because I worked hard to get my interview. Happy to help the other people down the hall. If you get my drift. They could glom on to the success. By the way, can I just say, I heard the other day during the shooting that I did not know this. We all crashed the boards to cover the shooting, and that they simulcast on all 5 of our stations.
Yes, that's true.
The programming from Super Talk 99.7. I didn't even know it. Well, I mean, that tells you a little bit about the commitment that this radio station and this cluster of radio stations has to the community.
Yep.
Pretty interesting. All right, it is 30 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk.
5:31. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories right now. 77 degrees and in and out of rain and thunderstorms. A severe thunderstorm watch for a lot of Middle Tennessee until 9. The western counties around Dixon and in line with them are out of striking distance. A flood watch for all of Middle Tennessee begins tonight at 11. That'll be until tomorrow afternoon, 1 p.m. That's something to watch overnight. And we'll keep you updated with all of this right now. Looking at power outages, and again, these thunderstorms, even though the severe portions of them are past Davidson County and Williamson County and over at Rutherford County just now passing there, they did bring a lot of wind, 60 to 65 miles an hour of wind, and those power outages are showing at Sumner County over 1,100 power outages, Cheatham County 550, and in Davidson County 3,000 people currently without power. And we'll keep you updated with all of that weather and traffic in just a few. Nashville Democrat State Rep Justin Jones is one of the 3 lawmakers who could be expelled from the State House of Representatives for violating decorum. They used a bullhorn while leading a protest for stricter gun control during last Thursday's House session. Jones gave an interview on CNN this morning defending the action.
We believe that we were acting in the spirit of our state constitution and the United States Constitution to voice the concerns and grievances of our constituents. That's why thousands of people gathered with us on Thursday once again and Monday. And they'll be back this Thursday when we're ousted, when they threaten to oust us.
Jones, Memphis Democrat Justin Pearson, and Knoxville Democrat Gloria Johnson are facing expulsion. Crime here in Tennessee. News 2 says that Sarah Fazan, the daughter of the Montgomery County Sheriff, has been charged with 2 counts of child abuse. The indictments state that Fazan, quote, unlawfully, intentionally, or knowingly, and other than by accidental means, treated a child under 8 years old in such a manner to inflict serious bodily injury. She's been booked in the Montgomery County Jail on a $25,000 bond, and Sarah Fazan's first court hearing in the case is set for May 8th in Montgomery County. And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Let's talk about DT McCall's, and they got a big mower sale going on, and it's that time of year where you got to think about, well, that old mower, it's about time to replace it. You want yourself a Cub Cadet mower from DT McCall's. I'm telling you, I have the ZT2 zero-turn mower, 60-inch deck. I've got about 2 acres. I could cut that yard in about 45 minutes flat. I love it. I can't tell you how much I love it. It's a great, great piece of equipment, my favorite piece of equipment. And they got a big Cub Cadet mower sale going on right now. It's at the store in Lafayette, April 7th through the 15th. So it's coming up, and you need to get over there and take advantage of it. DT McCall's is ranked as a top Cub Cadet dealer in the United States. You can find Cub Cadet riding mowers with the big decks if you got a big lot, or a walk-behind mower if you have a smaller lot. And when you purchase a Cub Cadet mower from DT McCall's, you get access to their in-house service department. Nearly impossible to find mower service anywhere else. A large selection of Cub Cadet mowers, free delivery, and an in-house service department. It's an easy choice. Again, that big event is April 7th through the 15th at the Lafayette store. And find out about all the things they can do for you at DT McCall's by going to their website, dtmccalls.com.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. You often hear me talk about diversification in the investing process, but how do we diversify? Well, we look for things that move in dissimilar fashion historically. Some of those market areas might be really small companies or really large companies, or very growth-oriented companies or value-oriented companies. One of the things that we find is that when we diversify between these various segments, we can reduce the volatility of the portfolio because they don't move in tandem with each other historically. Now, we can do that in U.S. markets, we can do that in international markets, and in emerging markets. And when we can dampen that volatility, we can help get ourselves a little bit of a better outcome as far as knowing what we might likely have in the future, or how we can take income from our investment portfolio. Now, we also want to add fixed income or bonds to the mix as well. Now, if we know that we need to do this, what's the best way to do it? Well, one of the things that we often teach is this concept of market efficiency. This won the Nobel Prize in economics as well. And it's the idea that if I'm investing in, let's say, small value stocks, if we look at professional managers and their ability to say, hey, should I have this stock or that one, and picking companies or areas of the market, we find that they typically get lower returns than the market does on its own. They just add expense and they can add a lot of volatility. One of the things we want to avoid is anything that can hurt your returns and increase your risk in the investing process. To learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call, or call 615-851-1950.
It is 38 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, and you're listening to The Drive. We've got a fun show so far today. I picked this music because I got to tell you, I'm very disturbed by what is happening in the world of automotive, the automotive world, I guess is the better way to put that, because it seems like they're going all electric. And I don't think that we're ready for an all-electric world. We don't have the grid for it. We don't have the support for it. We don't have the chargers for it. And quite frankly, although some of the electric cars are good enough for some things, I'm not sure they're good enough for all things. Let me bring you guys, you guys, I mean, we've talked about this before. Chris, you and I, we think it's interesting, but we're not ready.
No, definitely not.
Yeah. Mac, are you ever thinking that you might have an electric car?
Mac is not back in the newsroom.
Oh, he's not there. I can't see him.
Well, you wouldn't be able to see him because he's not in there.
Well, that's why I can't see him. An electric Ram pickup truck, according to the Associated Press, is about to be, well, it has been revealed. It gives 500 miles of range per charge, they say.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have that and apparently a battery-powered Kia SUV among the new vehicles being introduced Wednesday, today, at the New York International Auto Show. So this is another sign of the coming apocalypse, that we're not going to have, at some point, any internal combustion engines left on the planet. But I mean, a Ram pickup truck let me give you the statistics here. The Ram looks more like the current gas-powered model, but it has a lot of technology inside of it. It comes with 2 choices of battery packs, one with 350 miles of range, and an optional larger pack with an expected range of 500 miles. But see, what we found is okay, that's 500 miles in a perfect situation, not carrying a load, and in perfect weather if it's not cold. So if it gets cold, they don't go as far. If you're carrying a load in the back end, they don't go as far. You're hauling a trailer, they really don't go as far. But that's what they say. The company says it can tow 14,000 pounds and carry 2,700 pounds in its bed. The electric truck is rated 654 horsepower.
Wow.
So, a truck is a big thing, and when you're carrying a battery pack, it's heavy.
Mm-hmm.
So it can travel from 0 to 60 for a truck. Are you ready for this? 4.4 seconds.
Pretty quick.
That's exceptionally quick for a vehicle of that size. So, again, said the all-wheel drive REV can add up to 110 miles of a range in about 10 minutes with what they call a 350 kilowatt fast charger. Where are those?
Exactly.
Where do you find those? I mean, that would be nice if you could then 500 miles and then you find one of these 350 watt fast chargers. You spend 10 minutes, you can go 610 miles. That'd be great. But, again, I don't know. It's built on a new frame designed for large electric vehicles. Isn't due into the showroom until the fourth quarter of 2024. Would qualify for a $7,500 electric vehicle tax credit. No price.
Of course not.
No price.
And I'm sure whatever the starting at price is, good luck finding one of those.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
The other day, though, I thought about the Ford Lightning. And, I bought a Ford gasoline truck. I bought a regular old pickup truck. And I love it. But because I put myself on the list to at least be considered for a Ford Lightning, now they're trying to sell me one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they called back to me and they said, now, we have a Ford Lightning for you. Are you ready to trade in your pickup truck and get on the line? I said, no, thank you very much.
It's interesting. I've heard that that there are Ford Lightnings just sitting on lots because no one is buying them. Like not at dealerships, but at the production facilities that there's lots. They made them, but no one's buying them.
Well, I think there was a demand for a certain number of them, and then I think they have said that there are. I think I'm correct in saying this. We had a story on it a while back that some of them have had battery problems, and so I think they're trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
True.
Then you got this. To me, there was never a more beautiful car than the 1968 Camaro. I mean, to me, that was a
good one.
Beautiful pony car, muscle car. Came out in answer to what they'd come up with of the Mustang. The Mustangs and the Camaros through the 60s and 70s. They were pretty interesting cars, but the 68, that was perfection. With that oval round front. Oh, I thought that was a great car. Well, they're announcing that the Camaro will retire.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. And so it will no longer be a part of but they're going to go out with a big 2024 version that's supposed to be the last big Chevrolet sports car. I guess they'll keep the Corvette going, but I don't know in what form. But this will be a send off where it's going to be a hell of an engine. So I don't know.
They're trying to compete. One up for what Dodge is doing. I guess with their last
Dodge,
the Challenger,
closing up the Charger and the Challenger this year, and but they're going to put out electric versions
ones,
of them.
That's right.
But they believe that they're putting out. They're doing everything that they ever wanted to do with those vehicles to make them just incredible muscle cars
and just pull out all the stops.
And then they go away. The internal combustion engine will be going the way of so many other things. And I hate that. I don't think we're ready to give up on, naturally aspirated cars.
Yeah. I think it's interesting what the leaders at Toyota have said. Toyota is, I think, the second largest vehicle manufacturer in the world. They are not all in on the electric automobiles. They've done their hybrids for a long time with the Prius and whatnot, and they're still standing behind that. But they are not. They're saying they're not ready to go in all electric. Yeah, and to me, that makes a lot of sense.
And they may find. I think the Ford Mustang is going to stay. There's an electric version, the Mach-E.
It's not even a Mustang.
It's not a Mustang. I don't know why they even tried that. But the other Mustangs, I think they're going to keep on board. And I think Ford may do well because I think there's still going to be a demand for those kinds of cars. Yep. And
if no one else makes them.
That's right. I mean, honestly, if you want a naturally aspirated or I guess with fuel injection, I don't know if that's naturally aspirated. I may get corrected by
naturally as long as it doesn't have turbos or superchargers.
Okay, all right. Well, if you want a car that's an internal combustion engine, you want a muscle car, and you want to drive you better get one.
Yep.
I mean, I think you've got a few years left to find the one that you want and glom onto it. And I think those old muscle cars are just going to be incredibly valuable going forward.
Yeah.
I mean, I really do believe that. I think they're going to be rare, and I think they're going to be sought after, and I think, you got one, hold on to it because it's going to go way, 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 way up in value.
Yeah, I think you could be right. And it's not just limited to the electric vehicles that are taking over, but you're seeing it even in full-size pickup trucks where manufacturers are phasing out V8s entirely in favor of turbocharged V6s and even in some scenarios four-cylinder engines in full-size pickup trucks. So I'm glad I bought a big SUV last year with a V8 in it, and this year is actually the last year they will produce that model with a V8. Going into next year, it's going to be V6s or maybe even a four-cylinder.
I have the big Ford truck. Cabana wife has a car that it's an Edge, but it's an Edge ST. That sucker is a beast.
A little screamer, huh?
It's what do you call a car that's sort of undercover fast?
Oh, it's a sleeper.
A sleeper. That's it. Yeah, that's the term. Yeah, it's a sleeper. I mean, we went to a special school to learn all the things about it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
and learned how to drive it very, very fast. And I'm telling you, it is a scary fast car. If you see her coming, just step aside, because she will blow you off the. If you see a little Edge with a French Bulldog sticker on the back, just get out of the way. Get out of the way.
Yeah,
that's right. Then there is this. I think this is interesting. The average price for a new vehicle, what would you say it is?
I bet it's $50,000.
It's just a hair under $50,000.
Yeah,
$49,500 compared to just $38,948 3 years before.
It's quite a jump.
That's right. So the story from thehill.com is that new cars have become true luxury items. That many of them are priced well beyond what blue collar workers and hardworking American people who have real jobs and do real work can actually afford anymore. It's no longer a $25,000 or $30,000 transaction. It's a $50,000 or $60,000 transaction. Whew.
Even in the used car market, I think good luck finding a used car under $20,000 anymore. It's difficult, very difficult.
Yep. So, if you got a good car that you really like, you might want to just start babying it. I have a truck that I'm using lightly. Cabana wife puts a lot more miles on her vehicle than I do on mine. And then we have an old 10-year-old convertible that we keep in the garage. We drive on special occasions.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the parking lot now, though.
That's true.
It got rained on.
Ooh.
I'm not happy about that. Did I mention it's 50 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Let's talk about the Wellness Institute of Nashville. Dr. Kevin Mitchell, Dr. Ashley Mitchell now offer the first of its kind KT machine. Now think about this. It's like spinal decompression, but it's the same kind of technology aimed at your knee. It elongates the knee and the joint and allows there to be some therapy done on the meniscus and the cartilage so you can heal without the need for surgery or painkillers. Take advantage of the 2023 special. You get an exam consultation and x-rays, just $23. How about that? Dr. Mitchell will go over your condition, come up with a custom healing recovery plan, which will be discounted by 50%. Here's how you get started. Call the number, 615-246-5009. That's 615-246-5009. Spinal decompression, still a big thing there at the Wellness Institute of Nashville. I've been a patient there, and I've gone through a lot of it, and I can tell you it absolutely has helped me. So spinal decompression, now knee decompression, all kinds of innovative things you can find at the Wellness Institute of Nashville. Learn more about the things they can do for you by going to their website, painisbad.com. Let's talk about Busy Bee HVAC. Listen, if you need help with your air conditioning, with your heating, I mean, this time of year, who knows what you're going to need, or your plumbing, they're the folks that you want to call. Just give them a call at 775-7833. They'll buzz right over to your hive and solve whatever your problem might be. And if you reach the point where you say, you know what, this old system, it's just going to have to be replaced, then you should know there's no better value on HVAC and plumbing replacement systems, and you'll get 12 months, same as cash. Listen, here's what I would recommend. Become a member of the Beehive Club. 3 thorough maintenance services on your systems, one aimed at heating, one aimed at cooling, one aimed at plumbing each year. No overtime charges 24/7, 10% off all repairs. For satisfaction guaranteed, call Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, 775-7833, online at busybeehvac.com.
Six o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top story. 77 degrees right now in Nashville and still monitoring severe weather. However, not in Davidson County, Williamson County, really any portion of Middle Tennessee. All that now has passed. It'll now be going over to southeastern counties in Tennessee and over to Alabama. That's where we will be monitoring that severe weather and those strong winds for the next couple of hours. A flood watch still in effect starting at 11 until 1 p.m. tomorrow. That will be something to watch, as showers will still be off and on for the rest of the night here in the mid-state. Weather traffic, just a few minutes. Former Vice President Mike Pence says he will comply with a grand jury subpoena investigating Donald Trump's involvement in the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. Andy Field, details.
A federal judge had denied Mike Pence's appeal to avoid a grand jury subpoena, but the judge did agree that Mr. Pence would not have to talk about his actual job counting votes in Congress that day. The judge saying the vice president is protected by a speech and debate clause. Still, the former vice president must now tell investigators about his interactions with former President Trump leading up to the January 6th attack. Donald Trump is still appealing to stop Pence and other top aides from talking.
Crime right now in Tennessee. Another sexual predator is going to prison on child exploitation charges after a successful undercover operation in Middle Tennessee.
Back in 2019, an FBI agent put out a fake profile of a 15-year-old girl on a popular dating app. Authorities say 33-year-old Kevin Figueroa reached out, started sending lewd photos, and eventually exchanged phone numbers with the agent, whom he thought was the teenage girl. Figueroa showed up at an apartment in Clarksville where he thought he was going to have sex with the girl, but was met instead by federal agents and then started deleting apps from his phone. Well, the U.S. Attorney's Office for Middle Tennessee says Figueroa was sentenced yesterday to 10 years in federal prison for the sex crimes, another 30 months for trying to get rid of evidence, and once he gets out of prison, he'll serve another 10 years of supervised release. Ken Weaver, WTN News.
And staying here at home with a heartwarming local story, a mother of a 3-year-old daughter, Chris Wilder, has raised over now $30,000 to help those kids in Covenant School last Monday. Wilder lives nearby. She can't imagine the grief of those families. She just wanted to make some comfort kits to make those children and those families feel better. But those donations just kept on coming. Now Wilder's working on making Easter baskets for the Covenant community. That's the latest news, traffic, and weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
It's 6 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 on this Wednesday. We're so glad that you're with us as we bring you news and information you can use. What an interesting show it's been. It's always, of course, a pleasure to have Pete Hegseth on at 4:35 on Wednesdays. Whenever he is available and not on a plane, that guy flies around more than most people. But when he's ever available, he's always with us. And what a great thing it was to have Nate Bargatzi. And what I want to share with you is that because we now do these things to television, see, we're on television right now. You can. I'm messing with the camera.
I saw that.
Yeah. See, I see
Just
you.
Don't put your fingerprint on it.
Because we now have this Super Talk TV, when we get through, you can go back and watch the show.
That's right.
And Nate was on camera because we have, here in the mothership, we have many cameras.
That's right.
So he was on camera, so you can see the interview as well as hear the interview. And if you want to go back and revisit it or share that with somebody, can we like condense down certain parts of it and ship that out?
I did also post the interview with Nate on our to our podcast page on 99.7
and that's just the audio part?
Yes, that's
right.
just the audio.
Yeah, okay. Well, good. So there's a way that you can play that or share that with people.
Yep.
I thought it was a great interview.
Me too.
Interviewing people about their craft is hit or miss, because you never know whether they're going to, whether they can. Sometimes people who are really good at something can't tell you how they're good at it.
Yeah.
And
that makes sense.
But he had a lot of thoughtful things to say, and
he did.
I thought it was pretty good. So anyway, got that. Let's see. What else can I want to tell you about? I think that's it. I want to mention that I'm going to be gone for the next couple of days. It is a rare treat for me that I get to spend time with my sister, and she's in town for an event over at Gaylord, so I'm taking a couple of days to hang out with her. And Matt Murphy's going to be here for the Thursday and Friday show, and I thank him for that. He's very upset because the Masters is on.
Yeah, he's not going to get to watch the first round.
Yeah, I mean, to me the best part of the match, because I don't care a whit about golf.
Me either.
I just can't get excited about it.
Snooze fest.
Exactly, and but to me the best part of golf when you see the Masters is looking at the azalea bush in the front of the. Where is it played?
Augusta
National.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, he's making a huge sacrifice to be able to sit in for me and not watch the Masters.
Yeah.
And I, in return, will be off, and I promise, in return, not to watch the Masters either. So, so
that's only fair, right?
That's all right. Did Nate finally get out of the building?
I'm not sure. I left him. He's a grown man. He can fend for himself.
That's right.
So
I mean, apparently the sports people glommed on to him as soon as he left. And I went in and I gave them a piece of my mind. I did with the sports.
Did you really? I was afraid you were.
Well, I didn't go into the actual studio. I just went into the control room.
Yeah.
And I said, I see how it is.
Uh-huh.
I do all the work. I book the people, and you come in and you just glom on to them. And they were okay with it, though. They didn't care.
They were like, "Who are you again?"
Yeah, because they never see me.
They didn't know.
They don't know who we are. I don't know who they are. Yeah. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
I mean, I know generally who they are.
They're the sports people.
I know they're the sports people, and they got a really big old shiny studio over there.
Funny how that works.
Isn't that funny how that works? I mean,
it's like, have you seen the ceiling? It's like shaped like a guitar.
I know.
With the lights hanging from it.
I know.
It's just gorgeous.
I know. And I look at that and I say, we should be in there.
We got curtains.
We do have curtains. And you notice what they did was as soon as those guys in next door, they closed off all the walls so we can't even look at them anymore.
Yeah.
They don't want to see us.
No.
They don't want to have anything to do with us over at the Zone.
Mm-mm.
I think they're good guys. I'm teasing them.
Some
I think
of
they're
them
good guys. Yeah, I think.
Maybe most of them. Yeah.
All right. I want to talk about Trump. Because I have a theory here that I've been working on, and we sort of talked about this, opened up the phones. Maybe I'll open up the phones now. If you got a hard feeling about this, then jump right on. I wouldn't mind it. 615-737-9986. Here is my theory about what has happened. Now, there's two things that we know have happened. Number one, he's been indicted. Number two, we know that the indictment, according to many legal experts, is pretty thin. Pretty thin. There's not much there. I don't think it's going to hold up. I think it will die under a weight of paper. I don't think it'll ever go to trial. I think it's just there's nothing there that will stick. Okay, so then the question is, why did Bragg do this? Was it number one? Again, I'm going to go through some bunch of lists here. Was it a situation where he just wanted to puff himself up and make him sound like, I'm the Trump slayer? Was it strictly for his own edification and to puff himself up? Number two, were Democrats using this in a way to either hurt Trump, or alternatively, were they using it to help him because they really want to run against Trump? I mean, I don't want to get too convoluted here, but let's think about that for a moment. Trump's numbers since they started talking about this indictment have just gone through the roof. He's leading DeSantis by, in one poll, 30, in another poll, 31, in two other polls, 33 points. And so the question I think I sort of have is, was this a game where the Democrats thought, well, we'll come up with this BS excuse for a lawsuit. We'll throw it at Trump. The Republicans will glom onto Trump and move back to him, and that's what we want because we think we can beat Trump in a 2024, and that's the guy we want to get the Republican nomination. Is that what it was? Or was it they really want to damage Trump because they fear him? I can't decide which one it is. So 615-737-9986 if you have a thought about that. I think it's very interesting. The judge overseeing the Trump case might have a major conflict of interest. Might. Meet the presiding judge over President Donald Trump's criminal case, acting New York County Supreme Court Justice Juan Manuel Merchan, an apparent 2020 Biden donor whose daughter once worked for Vice President Kamala Harris's presidential campaign. He's donated 3 times to Act Blue in the summer of 2020. The judge's donation was, according to the FCC, earmarked for President Joe Biden's 2020 presidential campaign. So the judge has a grudge to bear. Donald Trump's arrest, and the Trump attorney says he believes the Manhattan District Attorney case will not see a jury trial. I think this is right. One thing I can assure you as I sit here today, there will be no guilty plea. That's one thing I can guarantee you. I don't think this case is going to see a jury. I think it's going to go away on papers. In other words, they will file all of these measures saying that, well, there's no case here, asking for a summary judgment. And if the judge has any integrity about him at all, then he'll just dismiss this thing. I think there's a legal challenge that will be made and should be made successfully, said Joe Tacopino, who is President Trump's lawyer. He also stated there's no indication the judge issues a gag order would prevent Trump from discussing the case in public. There's no indication there'll be a gag order, and apparently there was not. President didn't have much to say. The former president didn't have much to say when he was in New York. I think he spoke a total of 10 words, it was observed, in the court of law. But he got to Mar-a-Lago. He had plenty to say. This fake case was brought only to interfere with the upcoming 2024 election. That's the way he feels about it. How do you feel about it? To the phone lines we go, 615-737-9986. Joe in Atlanta, you're on with Brian on the Drive. What do you say, Joe? What do you take of this? What do you make of it? Is it Democrats trying to hurt Trump, or are they trying to help him because that's the guy they'd like to run against?
My concern would be that what are we missing in the distraction of all of it? Because it's really just smoke and mirrors, and I'm wondering what they're really hiding. And my comment is actually for the lady yesterday that called that said that she was a Republican forever until Trump, and then she would never be a Republican again, never vote for Trump, and that if he's guilty, even if he's not guilty, indict him on it, let him prove his innocence, and move forward from there.
my question to her is, then what are we doing about Hunter Biden and Joe Biden? Why aren't we prosecuting real guilt when these things have already been reviewed by other senior officials federally, and they found no case? I mean, it's all a ploy. I think it's a distraction.
Well, I would say to you about the Hunter Biden stuff is that I think things are moving behind the scenes, and the difference is everybody said, well, Brian, if they haven't gotten it by now, are they going to get it? Well, the difference is we have a House of Representatives with subpoena power, and they're getting some documents. It takes a while to process through that stuff. I mean, the wheels of justice, they move very slowly at times. But I mean, with the House, this is not the judicial process. This is the House investigative process, and I think they're onto something there. We'll see how that all plays out. I don't know. I can't read the thing, and I can't decide whether it is them trying to hurt him or trying to help him, because they honestly, I mean, you hear Democrats say they want to run against Trump. I don't know. Let's go to Ken out on the road. Ken, you're up next on the drive. How do you read this thing, Ken? What's your thought on it?
Well, I kind of agree with your prior caller. I think it's a distraction. I think they don't want us to see how bad Biden's doing on other things and that have been wrong for a couple of years that he's been in. I also don't know if it's a slam dunk that it'll get dismissed because it's in New York.
Yeah, I mean, that is something to think about. I mean, it's a New York jury and a New York judge, and will they give him an equal break? But I mean, honestly, some of these things that I've been reading from legal analysts, this is an incredibly thin case, really thin. I mean, it doesn't have any merit whatsoever. So, I will say this about most judges. They don't like to be overturned on appeal, and so it'll be interesting to see whether or not they're willing to do the right thing. Probably not. You're probably right. Eric in Nashville. Eric, you're on with Brian on the drive. What's your thought, Eric?
I think it's kind of all the above of what I've heard so far, things listed. But I think it's also just another tactic for them to divert away from Biden and his son in the possible trial case for them. They're doing whatever they can to just distract from that as much as they can, to where, hey, this president, for the most part, should be on trial for treason and being a traitor. They're doing whatever they can to distract from that.
All right. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot, Eric. Greatly appreciate your thought there. Leanne in Franklin, you're up next on the drive. What do you say, Leanne?
Hi. I just want to say the presumption of innocence now has become very fleeting, because I've heard on at least 4 different TV programs where they were interviewing people, that Trump would, quote, need to prove his innocence, like the caller from Atlanta said. And I just feel like if we're getting to that point, are we not just picking out a person and then trying to throw a crime against the wall and get it to stick? That's a scary place for us to be.
Yeah, I mean, you were innocent until proven guilty, but I saw where Nancy Pelosi said the other day, well, the former president will have a chance to prove his innocence. And she just got hammered that anybody would even suggest that there was a possible innocence there. She got all kinds of trouble from her own folks on that. All right, let's see if squeeze one more in. Rishi, you're up next from Murfreesboro. Rishi, can we get this in? You're on. Tell me what you think, Rishi.
I feel like we need some fresh person actually who cares more about the people rather than getting involved. Biden doesn't have mental capacity to deal with the job, and then it becomes personality thing actually with the Trump. So I just feel like somebody who cares about people, think about people rather than getting involved, because it's people's business and there should be some public servant who's honest, knowledgeable, and caring.
All right, Rishi, thank you so much. One of the things that I think is interesting is, if the Democrats are trying to help Trump and drive Republican voters to him because they believe that Trump is the person that they want to run against, then they must fear what I would consider to be a younger, more vibrant. There are many, many names that pop up, but younger, more vibrant. They must really fear that, I think. If you buy into that theory. Look, we've got a lot of time to figure it out, but I think sometimes that we as Republicans are playing checkers while the Democrats are playing chess. And, we need to think, what is their ultimate strategy here? We need to figure that out so that we can respond and not be behind the eight ball. I don't want to be too far behind here. What is I'm talking about chess and pool now to make my political analogies. It is 21 minutes, make it 22 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. The people at USS, good people. 23,000 satisfied residential customers. So, and that's what you need. You need somebody who will give you the information straight from the shoulder. When you're talking about waterproofing and foundation repair, scary stuff if you're a homeowner. And a lot of people don't want to know because they know that it could be something big that needs to be fixed. Or, here's the other fact. It could be a small problem that will become bigger if you don't take action. Or you may find out, you may get lucky, and it's really not much to worry about at all. The bottom line is you need good advice from an honest person, and you certainly don't want to be sold something you don't need. USS will come out. They'll give you their straight-from-the-shoulder assessment. They'll tell you what they think is going on. They'll tell you how you fix it if you decide to go forward. No down payment, financing available. Lifetime warranties on the home, on the product, guaranteed for the life of the home. So USS, their goal is to take the stress out of home repair. They guarantee their best. Call USS, serving Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, Northern Alabama, online at USSTN.com or call this number, 615-227-2275. It's 6:26 now on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy. So much going on around here. I think the weather is sort of calmed down. Would you agree, everybody?
Yeah, it's pushed off to the east, so it's pretty much out of the mid-state at this point. I don't think we have any counties that are in our listening area that are still under any watches or anything like that. So.
I've been checking my home security cameras to find out the status of Flo, the inflatable flamingo.
Yeah.
Don't see her.
Yeah. Well, then, on the good news, one of your neighbors has a new flamingo.
A new inflatable flamingo.
Might not have a pool to float her in.
Yeah. I don't know. Apparently, it's just breezy up there. So, in bucolic Watertown. Yeah. I mean, I'm still thinking this thing over about Trump. And what happened yesterday. I mean, the one thing that I do believe pretty passionately is that I don't think this is a very serious legal case. I mean, I've listened very carefully to all of the people who I respect greatly. I generally, my go-to guy for this kind of stuff is Professor Jonathan Turley, a professor of law. What I love about Jonathan Turley is he's not particularly a Trump fan. I wouldn't say that he's a conservative, but he certainly is willing to look at the law and see what the law says, which is, of course, what any good person in the law should do. He knows what the law is. If you get a judge who looks at the law and takes this thing seriously, this case won't be around very long. I don't think that's going to be. I don't think that's going to be even. I mean, I don't see how it stands up. I just can't see it. It's just so thin. I was trying to think of different words. Flimsy. It's like Swiss cheese. It's like gauze. It's just you can see right through it. There is no legitimate part to this lawsuit that seems to have any validity. What a horrible place we're in America today, where a district attorney can get an indictment on this kind of stuff and bring forth a case that is that unbelievably flimsy simply for a little notoriety to show how big a man he is. And he's a pretty good sized old boy, actually, I noticed. One way or the other, I just don't think it's going to hold up. But how long does it take that process? That's weaponization of the judicial process. Everything, I mean, this is what the Democrats are experts at. They get a little bit of power and they abuse it. They don't, they do whatever they can to take the levers of power, whether it's in the judiciary or in the executive branch or whatever, and they turn these things into political weapons. That's not the purpose of government. You're not supposed to use government to beat over the head of your opponents. That's not what it's for. The IRS, the FBI, the Department of Justice, these things are not supposed to be weapons to be used in the political arena. They're supposed to be used for the betterment and the good of the people who pay the taxes. But that's not where we are in America today. If you're a Democrat and you're in charge, you look at it from this perspective of how can I crush other people that I disagree with this little bit of power that I have. And when it all adds up, it's quite a bit of power, actually. 30 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Let me tell you about Sylvan Health, a personalized nutrition service covered by insurance, okay? Nutrition can improve the way you feel, can help you lose weight, we all know this, and manage health conditions like high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, all of which are directly related to the food that we eat. And this is where Sylvan Health can help. Sylvan connects you with a registered dietitian to help put together a nutrition plan for you without forcing you to cut out all the foods that you love. Your dietitian will provide tools such as meal plans, shopping list, restaurant guides. A few small tweaks to your diet can go a very long way. Appointments are done via video calls or over the phone, so there's no need to travel. And here's the best part. The service is covered by insurance. That's right, 98% of patients have zero out-of-pocket cost. So schedule your appointment today. Just call this number, 833-279-5826, or visit sylvanhealth.com and take that first step toward looking and feeling better, utilizing the power of nutrition.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. You often hear me talk about diversification in the investing process, but how do we diversify? Well, we look for things that move in dissimilar fashion historically. Some of those market areas might be really small companies or really large companies, or very growth-oriented companies or value-oriented companies. And one of the things that we find is that when we diversify between these various segments, we can reduce the volatility of the portfolio because they don't move in tandem with each other historically. Now, we can do that in U.S. markets, we can do that in international markets, and in emerging markets. And when we can dampen that volatility, we can help get ourselves a little bit of a better outcome as far as knowing what we might likely have in the future or how we can take income from our investment portfolio. Now, we also want to add fixed income or bonds to the mix as well. Now, if we know that we need to do this, what's the best way to do it? Well, one of the things that we often teach is this concept of market efficiency. This won the Nobel Prize in economics as well. And it's the idea that if I'm investing in, let's say, small value stocks, if we look at professional managers and their ability to say, hey, should I have this stock or that one, and picking companies or areas of the market, we find that they typically get lower returns than the market does on its own. They just add expense and they can add a lot of volatility. One of the things we want to avoid is anything that can hurt your returns and increase your risk in the investing process. To learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call or call 615-851-1950.
It's 38 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk. This on a Wednesday show. The thunderstorms have apparently moved on through most of our area. We had heavy rains, had some winds. I haven't heard of anything severe, so it looks like we dodged a bullet there. I want to talk a little bit about what's happening on Tennessee's Capitol, General Assembly, and it is, boy, I'm telling you, people are wound up about it. Democrats are angry because I think basically they've been misled, and it has to do with the three individuals, the two Justins and Gloria and the two Justins, which sounds like a rock group from the 70s. And now the latest hits from Gloria and the two Justins. But you have Justin Pearson and Justin Jones and Gloria Johnson. These are Democrats who serve in the state House, the House of Representatives in Tennessee, from the major metropolitan areas. I mean, let's understand that major metropolitan areas in Tennessee, sort of like they are in some other places. They are islands of blue in a sea of red. The state, ruby red. Inside some of these metropolitan areas are islands of blue, and they have elected Democrats to go and represent them in the state legislature. Okay, that's all good and fine, and they've put some people out there who, some of them are looked at as sort of pushing the envelope, radicals. Justin Jones for sure has that reputation. And so they go and they serve, right? And now they're going to be expelled from the body. Why? Not because of what they say it is, but because they have violated the rules that everybody agrees to in the operation of a legislative body. Now, let's just talk about this. Whether you're talking Congress, you're talking about a state legislature, whatever it is, when you have a city council, it doesn't matter. You're talking about a procedure where there are a set of rules that everybody agrees to that the body must operate under. If you don't have that, you have absolute chaos. You have to have rules and you have to have procedures, and that's what has been in place in the Tennessee State House forever. You go, and when you're opening up the new session, you have a measure that's put forth called the rules of the House, and everybody signs off on them. And when you sign off on them and you vote and they become the rules of the House, the understanding is you must operate under the rules of the House. Now, what do the rules say? Well, they say that, okay, for example, if a measure is being debated and you want to have something to say about that measure that's up for consideration, then what you do is you speak on it, you raise your hand, you get the attention of the chair, and you begin to talk about it. But if you start to veer off of that topic and turning it into a vitriolic attack on somebody else, or you change topics because you want to talk about something else, well, that's not in accordance with the rules. And it would not be inappropriate for the chair to, give you a warning. Generally, there's a warning. And if they don't, they gavel you down, they turn off your microphone, they move on. You have to have rules if you're going to operate a governmental body like that. Without that, you have chaos. You have talk radio, basically. It's just nuts. You need people talking about anything. You don't get anything accomplished unless you have rules, and the rules must be followed. Everybody signs off on the rules. If you didn't sign off on the rules, well, it's because you didn't have the votes to change the rules the way you wanted them. I would say to the Democrats who are upset about how, they go in and they violate the rules of the chamber, and then they get their microphones turned off, then I would say to them, go win more elections so you can have the gavel. You could be in charge of that body. It's not going to happen in the state of Tennessee, and they know that. So you don't get to just make up your own rules. So when they say, well, they gavel us down, and so we had no choice but to bring a bullhorn onto the floor of the House and take over, what they were really trying to do was create a political drama there. They were trying to get people who were protesting that day into the chambers. They wanted to take over the chambers. They wanted to shut down the chambers. They wanted to have their own protest, their own sit-in, and that's okay and fine. But if you're going to pull that kind of stunt, if you're going to, I don't have my button. I can't. If you're going to pull that kind of BS, then you have to understand that there's a consequences for your behavior. And the behavior is you can get expelled. So, don't buy into this stuff. I mean, they're telling you, well, the reason we're being expelled is because we're trying to talk truth to power, and they won't let us know. They are violating the rules of the House, and you just don't get to do that because you decide you know better. It's very self-centered and very self-focused. And you may feel very strongly about these things. Well, then go outside and protest. Win elections. That's the way you fix these things if you disagree with what's going on. But you don't just come in and create anarchy on the floor. And so, number one, I think the Speaker of the House, well within his rights, absolutely within his rights, if he wants to bring up a motion for expulsion, look, it's going to happen. It's going to be considered tomorrow. They're going to get expelled. That's exactly what's going to happen. And it's not because of anything other than their behavior, which was in violation of the rules, and they knew it. They full well knew it. All this talk about, well, they won't let us talk. They shut off our microphones. That's just a bunch of nonsense. That's not what's going on here, and they're lying to you when they say that. That's crazy talk. And what's interesting is when this all happened, the Democrats who are part of the leadership up there were just about as angry as the Speaker of the House was. And they were doing everything they could to stop the Gloria and the two Justins from doing the things that they were doing. They tried hard. But now, all of a sudden, once they start talking about expulsion, they've rushed back to their defense. You can't have it both ways. I know it's hard to be a Democrat in the state of Tennessee. I lived for many years in Maryland where Democrats outnumber Republicans 3-1. 3-1. And, it was difficult to live in that state and watch the things happening in that state that I disagreed with, but I couldn't have any impact on it because we couldn't get enough Republicans elected. Oh, well, that's the way it goes. That's the way the cookie crumbles. You want to change things, then start winning elections. Start making the case. I can tell you right now that the Speaker is well within his rights. And so what will happen is they're going to go through this process of expulsion. I think they're going to be expelled. It goes back to the county level, and the county officials must now then nominate somebody to go forward. The question is, I asked this question of the Speaker. I said, is this a situation where the counties could go, okay, Justin Jones just got expelled, and so Davidson County says, we're just going to send him back. Our choice to replace him is him. Well, what will happen is you can do that, but the reaction in the body is going to be, we don't recognize that individual as a sitting members of this body, so you're not going to have any representation. If you want to pull that stunt, go ahead. It would be better to cut your losses and move on. Now, Justin Jones can go back and run for re-election, and if he wins re-election, when the election is held, then he can come back, I suppose. But the counties are going to have to make tough decisions here about what they think. And so they're probably going to play and they're going to wail. There's going to be the gnashing of teeth. Folks, they did it to themselves. You don't get to create a riot on the floor of the House and then walk away and there be no repercussions. I mean, I think the Speaker of the House, when we talked to him yesterday, had a very interesting analogy. He talked about in the corporate world. In the corporate world, if somebody behaves badly, somebody acts egregiously, then you know what? The HR people get involved and they get fired. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. And the Republicans and the leadership are well within their rights to say that these guys have got to go away for a while. And we'll see how that all plays out. But it's, from what I can tell, and I feel like I'm not the whip, but I had pretty good sense about these things, and I got pretty good sources within the state legislature. These three individuals are going to be expelled, and we'll just see where it all falls down, where it all lands. But there'll be games played, and a lot of untrue things will be said in defense of these individuals. Understand the truth. There are rules. They violated the rules. They understood that they were violating the rules. It wasn't like it wasn't explained to them. They tried to create a moment of anarchy on the floor of the House, and now there are repercussions to one's behavior. They have to go away for a while. It's 49 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. How are you faring in this rough and tumble market? The experts at Beacon Capital Management understand it can be a little scary, but here's the thing. Beacon Capital Management has a plan to assess where you are and help you make any mid-course corrections that might be needed. I mean, wouldn't it be great to have peace of mind that you are on the right path? Beacon can provide that reassurance. It starts with a simple phone call. The experts at Beacon will take it from there. I mean, what do you have to lose except for all the worry that you have right now? Get started today by calling 615-488-9303. At the end of the process, you'll be able to rest easy knowing you have a plan that meets all your retirement goals. Replace the worry with confidence that you're on the right path, that all the T's have been crossed and all the I's have been dotted. Again, the number is 615-488-9303. The experts at Beacon stand ready to take your stress away. Learn more at beaconcm.com. All right, thank you so much for being with us here today. If you want to watch the Nate Bargatze interview, it is available to you. Just simply go to 997WTN.com. Our Facebook pages, it's all there, and we'll probably replay that on the day of his big show at what is it, Bridgestone Arena. That'll be good fun. Matt Murphy is in for me tomorrow. I'll be back here on Monday. Have a good time.